Hey, what's happening? Just want to jump in here real quick before I get this show started and let you know that I made an error in my description or talking about Brian's foot pedal that he created. It's called DOS pedal. Said that he made it for the Bethlehem, and he actually made it for Herbert Arnold. So I just want to make that correction. And now it's time for the show. Enjoy.
This is the Wise Guy Radio Show, a podcast dedicated to educating and inspiring through conversations with today's top talents in the world of glass. We will be dissecting their journeys in hopes to deliver actionable content that you, the artist, can start implementing now, helping you grow not only as a creative spirit, but also a successful artistic entrepreneur. With a little organization, relationship building, and your artistic ability, you can obtain greatness. Climb aboard, whether an artist, retail owner, or enthusiast. We have a ton of fun in store for you. Welcome to the Wise Guy Radio Show.
You're listening to the Wise Guy Radio Show.
This episode of the Wise Guy Radio Show is brought to you by Mountain Glass Arts. For the month of November 2018, Mountain Glass is offering their Boros sale. They have rod and tube Pyrex brand on sale at 45% off. There's no coupon code needed. Again, that is Pyrex brand borosilicate glass, rod and tube at 45% off. No coupon code needed. And for all you beautiful soft glass nerds, they have their double helix sale, 15% off. All you have to do is just go buy it. No coupon code needed. How about that? They are making life easy for us over there at Mountain Glass. And they have a whole bunch of new sales going on between bead making kits, jewelry stuff, kiln sales, glasses on sale, all kind of good stuff. They have weekly sales going on right now as well. And just go there in Mountain Glass and check them out. Go to mountainglass.com for any other questions, comments, or concerns. That is mountainglass.com. Hey, what is happening? Welcome to the Wise Guy Radio Show, episode 203. Man, it's crazy saying 203 already. So anyways, here you go. How you guys doing? Sorry for the delay on the episode. We had a pretty hectic week at my family this last week and a half here. I guess really this past week alone, we had a member in our family that we lost suddenly that was unexpected. It's actually my ex-father-in-law, who's really was more like a father figure in my life. My ex-wife and I, we were on and off together for around 13 years. And even after our marriage ended, I still stayed in touch with the family and traveled and saw places. And just Stuart, who was my father-in-law, was such a big influence in my life and my children's life also. And it's just been a tragic, kind of thing that happened. And still in shock about the whole situation, trying to get the words out without being too melancholy here and bringing the show down. But I guess it's the whole point of all this, really, that I wanted to share this, besides apologizing for the delay on the show. And I know I shouldn't be apologizing because we had a death in the family, but I still want to, because I'm trying to stay on track and to keep these shows consistent. But really, when it's our time to go, it's our time to go. And I know that's a philosophy some people live. But also at the same time, just understand that you could live to be 100 years old, and if you live like an asshole and unhealthy, you're going to be miserable when you're in your 90s. So live life to the fullest, but live life in a healthy, loving, meaningful way. Stuart didn't always live life healthy, and not sure if that's what caught up with him, but he did live life to the fullest. He worked his ass off. He had a huge, amazing work ethic, something that influenced me a lot. My father also had and still has an amazing work ethic. I mean, a lot of the men in my life have always had that. It's something I've been raised around. It's probably why I'm so much of a workaholic in a sense. It's just I'm just genetically predisposed here to be a workaholic. But that being said, really just our time is our time. But let's live life to the fullest. Let's live it to the healthiest, most fulfilling potential life that we have. Not only for us, but for those around us. And, the reasons we do what we do shouldn't just be for us, but it should be for those that are around us or for people we might run into or influence or inspire or make happy or whatever in general we can do positive in the world. And we can only do that if we're in our right state of mind and all healthy manners and stuff. So I don't want to ramble on too much about it, but just life is just precious, and just take every day for what it is. Be happy when you wake up every day, and make the most of it. And just don't spend your entire life in your studio behind your torch. As easy and as fulfilling as it can be, it's really not why we're glass artists. We're glass artists because it allows us to live a life and a lifestyle that we can actually design and live to the fullest, whether it's traveling, visiting friends and family, collaborating with other artists, being a creative. I mean, you name it. Like I get a chance, I want to go mow the grass and play out in the garden, pull weeds, or cook some dinners, or whatever. There's ways that you can allow yourself by enjoying your life as a glass artist. And just live it to the fullest. So I'm still in a daze. It's been just a emotionally draining week, so I'm gonna stop rambling about that. But you get the gist of what I'm trying to say here. But that being said, today's episode is featuring Bryan Ratcliffe. He goes by Surf Rat Glass out there in the Instagram worlds. He actually had another name which I'm not going to say here now because I don't want to spoil it. But he had a past incognito name, which a lot of us have had over the years as we've evolved into this medium of social media, trying to find something that is catchy and sticky in a sense that will be recognizable as a brand. And I think Bryan's come up with something really good here. We also had a really kind of a long, interesting, fun journey. It's always fun bringing artists on the show who have been involved in this glass world as long as I have. Bryan had a very similar timeline, except he had a chance to travel. He left the country for a bit and got to experience all the things that us glass artists had to experience in the early 2000s, but from a different perspective in a different country. And it's really, really interesting, just that conversation, a part of it, and his upbringing and how he's exposed into this whole glass world in general, and in his influences along the way, too. But also, he is a maker and a creative person in general, and an entrepreneurial mindset. And when you're an entrepreneur, as an entrepreneur, we take issues or things missing in life, and we try to fill those gaps as an entrepreneur, creating a product to fill that gap, whatever it might be. And one of his issues he was having early on was trying to find the right foot pedal for his Bethlehem that he just wasn't happy with. And he had heard a couple of different areas of people that were making pedals, a variety of styles of what he was looking for to be able to really adjust his flame in a nice rolling, gradual sense. So he actually came up with a product called DOS Pedal, and it's available now. It's been available. You can go check out, I think it's dospedal.com. I'll have the links in the show notes for you guys. But it's definitely an ingenious idea and concept, and really can show you how, if you have an issue or something that you just need as a tool, instead of going out and looking to buy one, just fucking make it. And next thing you know, you have a product that potentially you can sell. And it's not something that you necessarily have to do to sell it. I mean, even if it's just something that you come up with that makes your life easier, it makes your life more efficient in terms of being a glass artist, and what make your tools work better for you, etc. And it's been neat to see over the years, the 20 years almost now, of being a part of this, to see the evolution of the foot pedals, or seeing the evolutions of the tools and the joint makers, or the color, or all these things that have come about. And it's all come about because there were specific needs and gaps in this industry and in the borosilicate world of glass in general, as things kind of evolved and did their thing. So, should have my ringer off like an amateur here. So, anyways, so Bryan and I had a fun conversation. Towards the very end of the talk, too, I like to always ask, my guests if they have anything else they want to chit-chat about before we go into the Crash in the Kiln round. And that led us into a whole nother wormhole of conversation. Bryan has been going through a training session, in a sense, to become certified basically as a nutrition and health specialist. He talks about the specifics in the episode and in the interview here and about it. And I'm actually going to be bringing him back on again for a variety of other episodes to talk about these areas of health in our life and the importance of it. And this kind of goes back to my opening about, being life being precious and living life to the fullest, but also, when it's our time, it's our time. And if it's our time's going to be when we're 100 years old, we want to make sure we're in our best, prime, ideal health as possible. And Bryan and I talk about a lot of that, and we get into some genetic talk. Like it was a really fun conversation. We could have gone on for hours. I mean, Bryan and I really felt kind of like kindred souls in a sense. Like we've known each other for a long time, even though this is our first time ever chit-chatting. And he was actually introduced to me through my brother, Jared, who was on episode 199, part 1 and part 2. So if you guys haven't heard Jared's episode, JB out there, check him out too. He's definitely, we got a lot of feedback on his show. He's definitely has a spice for life and a passion for glass and refining. But Bryan's is very similar, and his journey that took him to where he is now, which ties us into last week's Wise Guy Radio Minute, which was thinking about areas as this evolution of this industry is where it is, with the sales kind of lacking and being weird and this strange flux on items and products that you can create to get yourself through the slow times, but also things that you can create that are going to leave a lasting memory for your customers that buy your stuff. And Bryan gets into that conversation and talks about how his glass evolved from being not only just a maker and a pipe maker, but to where he is now really focusing on these pendants that he's doing, which are amazing. You'll see it if you see his Instagram post, or just go look on his Instagram page. You'll see all the awesome pendants that he's making. And yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. So I just want to make sure I have my notes here. I got everything covered because, again, it's been a crazy week, and I'm going to make sure I got everything written down. Yeah, I think we got everything covered here. So I'm going to go get in the shower and get my ass off to work at the Mouse House today. And again, hope you enjoyed this episode 203 featuring Bryan Ratcliffe. Don't forget to go check out our sponsors at Mountain Glass and also the Flow Magazine. If you have not yet subscribed to the Flow Magazine to get your annual subscription, you can get 10% off just by putting in the coupon code WISEGUY at checkout. That's WYZGUY at checkout. Excuse me, got the hiccups. And that'll get you 10% off their annual subscription. And it's a quarterly publication. And I've been blessed to have my past series, So You Want to Be a Glassblower, published as an editorial that are going to be spread out over 5 episodes or issues. But you can get their magazine digital, hand printed, etc. So definitely go check them out at theflowmagazine.com. And again, all of our friends over at Mountain Glass Arts, they have amazing sales going on all the time, as you heard in my intro. So until next time, stay happy, stay healthy, stay wise, stay hydrated, and stay warm because it's starting to get chilly out there. Love you guys so much, and let's go call somebody right now. Stop this episode. Actually, listen to the whole thing and then call somebody, because that way you don't forget to listen to it. But make sure you tell those around you that you love them, and life is too damn short. I love you all. Take care. Talk to you soon. What's going on, Bryan? Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks.
Yeah, dude, stoked to get you on here. You were recommended to come on here by my brother, and he's been hitting me up with all kind of different people he wants on the show, which I appreciate because there's 100 million glass blowers out there right now. So trying to narrow everybody down, and influencers and people that, in a sense, quote unquote, have their shit together. It's not always easy to find. So I definitely appreciate getting you on the show and sharing your journey with everybody, man.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it as well. Any publicity is good publicity, and this is actually good publicity.
Yeah, exactly.
Get to talk to a real person. So.
Yeah, I won't make you a heel you'll be babyface all episode. So I'll keep you in the good light here. So before I get too rambling and sidetracked, bro, if you want to get us started here by telling us about your superhero origin story and how you were introduced to the flame.
Let's see. Let's start even before glass.
Yeah.
I was just a kid obsessed with making stuff. Obsessed. I grew up with 3 channels on the TV, and they barely worked, even that. My dad made snowcats when I was a kid, and my grandfather, actually, he was a war veteran, but also an inventor as well. So kind of had that basis, and then add to that, my mom was a painter, or is a painter, and an illustrator. So I kind of had that running through my veins, and I knew from pretty young age that I just really liked making things. It was more fun going to shows. It was more fun than a lot of things for me. So originally it was silkscreen. I wanted to make T-shirts for all like Nine Inch Nails and the bands that I never really got to see as like a 13-year-old.
Huh.
So I silkscreen T-shirts. And then quickly it kind of transformed into ceramics. And so by middle school, I had a potter's wheel in my bedroom, which was dirty.
Yeah, sure.
Clogging the sinks with clay. I was bringing bowls and cups that I had made in on the bus to try and bring them into school to fire them. And I pretty much, even towards the end of high school, quit going to most of my classes and just went to art class. So
Hell yeah.
that's where some of it started. I really felt that I enjoyed that the most. And, I've done a lot of learning over my years, but in the beginning, I really just wanted to focus on what I liked. And it was art and it was snowboarding. So those were the two things when I was in high school. And then I decided to go to school in Gunnison, Colorado, because it was a school that was right there, and it was right near Crested Butte, Colorado, so I could snowboard. And that was a huge thing for me, as I was already a competitive snowboarder, racing border cross and giant slalom and stuff on an amateur level there through high school. So I took that, went out, and I was, instantly in kind of the art department, but I really had wanted to figure out and check out glass. So I looked around, and surprisingly, there were quite a few glass artists in the Gunnison, Crested Butte area. There was Eli Aller had a big shop, and then there were a few independents, and there was a Berserker Glass. Bryan was also doing stuff there, and he had actually just graduated from Western State University, which was the school I was going to out there. And so as he was building his kind of first studio, I hopped in there and started renting some bench space from him and blowing glass. And I guess that was probably 99.
Okay.
Around there.
Yeah, that's when I got started too.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that was like, we were one of the first waves, I believe, of that kind of 99, 2000 era, where all of a sudden we realized that, as makers, we could make something and turn around and sell it right away, which was really unique in the maker space world. I was doing ceramics and I was looking, and I was like, man, there's old ladies selling these awesome mugs that probably took them like 20 hours for like $20. I was like, that's not really going to work out long term for me. And I was amazed to see glass blowing. And I was also really already kind of, I was into the cannabis culture in Colorado. It was quite strong, and the glass culture and scene was pretty strong too. I grew up near Red Rocks, and so I got to see some neat pieces. And when I got the chance to get on a torch, I jumped at the chance. I spent my I found out about it right as my semester was starting. I took my student loan check and dumped all of it on a new torch and tools with no money to pay my rent for the rest of that semester. And then within 10 days, I was making some little beads and some little teeny inside-out-ish pipes. I don't know if I'd call them sellable, but they were sellable to my college classmates.
Yeah, they're functional.
I was making rent right away. I wasn't doing great, but it was I had the return on my student loan investment.
Nice.
Right there.
Hell yeah. Yeah, it's interesting you say that too with the first wave, because it's definitely, you're correct on that. Like the guy that got me started with the pipes, Daniel Sharp, he was the guy that got him into it, learned from Snodgrass. So it was like, I'm like third generation Snodgrass, I guess, in a sense. So it was like, that early first end of the 80s, early 90s wave, and then everybody's like starting to spread out. The family tree kind of got its third branch in a sense. So
yeah, I think head shops were really starting to, gain some momentum and actually sell some pieces that were, as much as $100 or maybe $150, things like that. I'm sure independent artists in Oregon were selling higher end pieces. The first heady I ever saw in person was a Brock piece. Somebody brought a Brock piece into the studio and was smoking out of it, and I was blown away. It was all double terminated. On one side, it was like cobalt Latticino canes inside out with some gold and silver fume, and on the other side, it was probably just gold and silver fume dots. All, double terminated, reversed, squished flat, and it was like a 6-piece thing. And I saw that, within about 2 months of blowing glass, and my mind was blown. I
Yeah.
was so amazed.
Yeah, it's cool, man. Because being here in Florida, like we're so far from the culture and the way that how conservative the state was for the longest time, and it still kind of is. But we had one shop in town, and he had the connection out to guys out in Humboldt and all that stuff. So he was bringing in like early on, like old Scott Deppie and Jason Lee and Marcel stuff, from back then. Abe Fleischman, like when those guys were really figuring their stuff out, So I was the same way. Like I'm seeing this shit, and I only learned by going around into the smoke shops and just seeing what was on the shelf, and just not telling them what I was doing, but I was studying the work, But seeing those first headies coming over from like Corvallis and whatever, that was just like you're saying, mind blown, like ready to hang the torch up already, or spend my rest of my life and dedicate it to learn how that was done, which is what 20 years later.
Dedicated the next few months to learning how to do a reversal. I was already learning inside out because that was the hot new thing that Berserker was doing right next to me, and so I could see you could flare open a tube and put stuff inside of it, and that was really exciting. And then seeing stuff get put together, and it was interesting. I had seen high-end gallery glass for quite a while. I would go to, when I would ski or snowboard or go to events, I would go up to Aspen or Vail and check out the galleries up there, the Habitat Gallery and stuff like that. And it was super awesome. But when I first saw Hetty, I had enough knowledge to where I could be like, oh, wow, that's reversed. And those are terminations. And so I think it was interesting that seeing high-end glass at a little bit further into my development as a glass blower really spurred and kicked along a lot of emotions and motivation.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, man, when you can go to a place like that and kind of have an understanding of what is actually going on, where like the layman walks in there and they're just amazed by how pretty it is, but when like the technical side of what went into that, it's kind of like a light bulb moment, I guess, in a sense, in some ways.
Totally. Definitely to an artist. It's interesting. I had another interesting aha moment going into some galleries, and this is a little side thing, but I went into a gallery a while back and I was like, what is the biggest motivational factor for a buyer to get a piece and be happy with it? And she's like, has to match the drapes.
Exactly.
So that was an interesting eye-opening statement from the gallery worker that's there selling all the stuff all the time. So
yeah, it's funny, because especially like even nowadays when you hear the stories of these art collectors that are buying pipes that they don't even realize is a pipe, but they buy it because it matches their couch or some shit like that, and they're spending $20,000 on it, but then they realize and they're told it's a pipe, and they still want it because it's a beautiful piece of art, but they don't give a shit that it's maybe it's a cool little bonus on the side that it functions, but yeah,
true.
It matches the carpet or like you're saying the drapes or whatever. It's
yeah. And I mean, I currently, as I've really shifted more into the jewelry space, and I'm sure that I sell pendants to people that don't wear them. They display them, they look at them, they appreciate them. And so it is an interesting little juxtaposition to selling a pipe to somebody who doesn't smoke out of it. It's like, well, I guess then it's just art or craft or a fine product.
Yeah, exactly. Huh, it's interesting to think about, especially the pendants, like even like yours, but some of these other ones that are so intricate shape-wise, like it seems almost dangerous to wear in a sense, you know what I mean? And people
Definitely.
are selling them and wearing them or not wearing them.
Or a no-hug pendant. Where you're like,
exactly.
Well,
I've got a couple of those.
This one around.
I actually have a whale tail that was carved out of bone, and the very tips of the tail, I hit one of the ends on a table one day on accident and just barely chipped it. So it's sharp. I need to grind it down. I keep forgetting about it, but it's my no hug pendant that I wear. I got to make sure I actually will throw it around my back, around my shoulder, make sure I don't pierce somebody's chest with it. So yeah, man. So back to the glass. So early on, and they're learning the process. Like, so you're starting to get into inside outs and stuff. Having someone there like Berserker to kind of lead the way. Because like for instance, my inside outs at first, I couldn't figure out why I kept burning my hand. Like, what the fuck is going on? Until I had a buddy swing by. He's like, just stick some newspaper or toilet paper in the mouthpiece, to make that vacuum, so you don't burn your hand anymore. So did you have like access to that, like where there's that kind of knowledge? Was that being shared in the studio space early on, like back in the day like that?
Well, I mean, I think had he known, it would have been shared. But he was about a year into it, okay, and also self-taught. So there was definitely a lot of condensation and blow tubes going on. You know, we were
Yeah.
opening up tubing and just, yeah, you just deal with it. And so he had a technique of just kind of blobbing stuff in there and leaving the little stringery pieces too. So it was a real quick process of dabbing stuff in and then getting it closed and hoping that the condensation didn't go down and wreck your hour of work. So
Yeah.
that was very interesting to me. Also, you know, it was very interesting to me at the time when I was learning glass. I was already, you know, pretty accomplished potter. I was doing, you know, I had done a lot of wood shop stuff. I'd actually made pipes in the wood shop since I was probably in like 8th grade.
Nice.
So I was pretty good at making a lot of stuff, and I was amazed at how difficult glass was. I would get that, like, I'd feel like my hands were across the room while I was blowing glass. It felt like I was like not attached to my arms and they were just kind of moving. It was a really interesting feeling.
Yeah, I know that. I know that
exactly.
sensation. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
there.
I can't totally explain it, but
Yeah.
luckily it doesn't happen now.
Well, it's weird, man, because like when I sometimes realize actually how long my arms are when I can step back from the torch and still have my hands and my glass in the flame, and it's like it's like a third party experience perspective that you're getting of what you're doing. It's fucking. I know what you mean. It's really weird. I've experienced that before for sure.
And as a maker, it is so strange to work on something yet not be able to touch it until
Yeah.
it's done.
Yeah, and which I think is awesome that you went from ceramics to glass, because I did the same thing, and I talk to people at Disney all the time about it. You know, when I'm working and going from that, and I'd like my thumbnails and my thumbs were like huge parts of my tools that I would use, and you can't use your fingers anymore. Having to learn how to use tweezers and butter knives and spoons and things for carving, you know, it's a whole different aspect.
Totally, and you can't run your fingers across it to see if it's jagged. You can't, you know, I was just always fixing things by hand, and to go as a by hand or a hand craftsman to a product where, you know, you're using specialty tools and you're using the glasses tools. So it was definitely a brain expanding experience.
Hell yeah. So when you were first getting your stuff, you know, besides selling to your college friends, like how did you start when you actually had a line of product that you were making? How did you go about starting to market and sell your stuff?
I did it really grassroots. I was just basically, so I lived in Gunnison, Colorado, beautiful area with 0 head shops and a few glass blowers. And so I literally just sold to my friends and fellow students. And then actually, I did sell some glass to some shops down in Florida. When I first started, I bought glass from Berserker and brought it down and resold some of his stuff in Florida and kind of established a few accounts. And then sold some stuff to them as I got a little bit better, but really worked on just selling stuff by hand. You know, it's funny. I used to like roll into the gas station, take my case out, put it on my hood while I got gas, and I would sell like 3 pipes every time I picked up gas. Granted, this was in Colorado. The atmosphere was very favorable to that, and people weren't very uptight about those situations. You know, granted, it was all for tobacco purposes as well.
Right.
But, yeah, I would just straight up, like, everywhere I would, like, when I would go to the bar, I'd have an open case. And, you know, this was a long time ago, so people didn't really mind as much, I think. But, I was vigilante glass sales for sure.
Dude, I had so many friends that would go sit on a sidewalk outside of a cafe or something, like same thing. Just sit there and have their case open, not disturbing anybody, and they'd sell a shit ton of stuff.
Yeah, I've definitely had it come in waves, but the gas station was my biggest one. It was so strange.
It's
it was
hilarious.
You know, I didn't even wait there. It was just while I was getting gas. And, you know, a couple $100, you roll out, you're like, yes!
Yeah, dude. So, like, the sun's, like, sparkling on the glass and shit, and you're there enjoying the gas fumes and selling glass. It's pretty killer.
Yeah. Well, you know, and it was really an era where it was hard to get a sweet piece. And if you, like, met the guy and bought the piece, that was even better because you never met the glass blower. It was, you know, through the head shop or whatever was going on. So there were a lot of advantages to be taken, you know, or a lot of things to take advantage of when I was first starting out there. And I feel very fortunate because I feel starting right now would be different. You'd be able to utilize the internet in a different way. You'd probably be better at marketing yourself, but it was really neat to be able to make something and turn around and support yourself right away as a young guy.
Yeah, and I'm sure you're probably in the same mindset, you know, as being a creator. And even though we're all in the cannabis culture in a sense, you know, and I know early on making pipes before making glass pipes was one of my things too. So making glass pipes was like, this is fucking awesome. But I always knew too, like for me as a quote unquote artist or a maker, I always loved making perfume bottles, and I would start making a perfume bottle, and I'm like, well, I know I could actually just pop a hole, push a bowl, and sell this thing tomorrow instead of waiting 6 months to sell it. You know, it's just did you ever have like that kind of that internal conflict with yourself, or where you're always kind of just gung ho on focusing on the pipes?
You know, it was interesting. So I first started making little bottle-y type inside-out practice pieces. And pendant, you know, your mushroom pendants and stuff like that, before I could really make a hollow vessel. And once I could make a hollow vessel, I really just wanted to make pipes mostly. And a lot of it was because I was already making all the other stuff in ceramics and all my other art classes combined.
Okay,
So I was going to school full time making a lot of non-pipe stuff. So it was really neat to be able to just make pipes because I liked them and they had this functionality and I could test stuff out without and still make money off it, which was huge. Like to be able to basically run a test and still make your money per hour or whatever was really big for me. I do remember I did a few independent directed studies through my school, and basically I took some orders for like wine glasses and other things and then turned them in for credit and sold them, which was so awesome.
That is, hell yeah, double dipping. In the finest
so
way.
I did that. I was big on making teapots at the time too, so I made some glass teapots. And also I forget that when I was learning inside out, I used to make a goblet top every time and then flare it open that little bit more and then start putting my dots in it inside out. So I was practicing my goblet tops and some of my thinware as I was going. So that kind of filled that need to make non-pipe stuff as well.
Yeah, that's and it's actually very smart in a sense, whether it was intentional or not, you know, to understand that I guess kind of back up when I teach glass, it's very cumulative, or it builds up. You know, you start off with a basic thing, and next thing, you know, leads into the next thing, leads into the next thing, and you don't realize all these little nuances that you're learning through that process. And what you're saying, I did the same thing. Like once I got into the inside outs, I realized, well, I could just rip off a section of tube, flare it out with a punny on there, do my work, and then attach a blowpipe. And I remember the same thing, thinking like, hey, I'm kind of like actually making cup tops. So that's what I would do, the same exact thing. I would practice making my cup tops, make that flare as clean as I could, and then I would add my line work or frit or whatever, and then constrict it and make it into a pipe. And then eventually got into making some goblets and cups. I mean, I'm nowhere as proficient making that kind of stuff as some artists are, but it was still, it's cool that you can recognize that, you know, even if it's down the road, you recognize it, maybe not immediately while you're doing it.
Yeah, I'm really still very thankful to have had all that practice flaring and blowing out things thin and working with thinner glass, and just, you know, ruining hundreds of cup tops.
Yeah.
I think you really have to get there before you can even know what one is like when it goes well.
Yeah. Yeah, I never really knew how to make a proper cup top, and then my buddy Dave showed me one day, and he's like, and then after it cooled down, he dinged it with his finger, and he's like, listen for the ring. And if it's dull or doesn't have a certain tone, it's got like just a specific ring to it, you know, and that tone that it makes when you know it's like it's on point. It's even wall thickness, you know, this whole 9 yards. It's interesting.
Thinner, for sure.
Yeah. So are you a point puller or you use blow tubes?
Both.
Okay.
I love a nice point off standard wall. Sometimes I'd rather add a blow tube. Or if it's just going to be some type of a sketchy situation where I know I really don't want to cut in my finger for the next few days.
Yeah.
But, you know, now I usually use mostly blow tubes for the pendant work and stuff, just because it works out a little bit better in that respect.
Hell yeah.
But,
so how many years through your career was the pipes like the main focus of your work? Before you started really transitioning into the pendant stuff?
Well, let's see, man. You know, we'll probably go over it a little more, but really, I've been jumping around as like my main focus my whole career. It's almost like my goal was to confuse my buyers, and I did a good job of it for a while. I mean, like, wait, isn't he the guy that does that? Or is he the guy that does that? Or is he the guy that does that? My entire goal for glass blowing was to entertain myself and learn something new, or try something I've never done every day.
Hell yeah.
And that was really awesome. Like, it basically gave me a reason to be in the shop. I didn't really care if I made 10 pieces that day or whatever. As long as I learned something new, I felt really fulfilled. There were so many new things to learn. And so I would say I haven't focused on just pendants until early this summer. I made a choice to just do one thing and do it as good as I can, and also follow where the market was guiding me. You know, I was selling much more of the wearables, and I decided to really follow that market. But before we get to all that, we gotta go back. So let's go back to, I graduated in like 99, 2000 from school, and I was like, I'm ready to leave the country. I had done some traveling before I went to college, and I was so ready to just like be in a different locality in a different area. And so for the New Year's between 99 and 2000, I had gone up to Vancouver, Canada, and just visited because I knew that cannabis was really, the laws were very relaxed there, even though it wasn't legal. And the snowboarding was amazing. The mountain biking was amazing. So I went out there for New Year's, and when I was up there, I went to Blunt Brothers, which was this head shop you could smoke in. And I asked, and I was like, well, who are the local glass blowers? Because this place is awesome. You can like smoke in the head shop, and it's a whole awesome country. And they were like, well, there was this one guy, but he left. And I'm like, wait, there's a whole city, a whole province, and a whole nother country, and there's no glass blowers. And so when I graduated from school, I kind of packed up my car, and my brother Darren drove with me, and my whole goal was just basically to move to the West Coast. I was like, well, I want to live near the ocean. I want to live where I can still snowboard. And, I drove up, and I was like, well, Oregon's awesome. I had all my stuff in my car. We were like, it's pretty cool, but let's keep driving. And then we were like, Seattle? Oh, Seattle's pretty cool. Let's keep driving. And I was like, Bellingham's really cool. Let's keep driving. Let's see if they'll let us over the border.
Fuck yeah.
And so, with my little Honda Accord, I had basically nothing in the back seat and a rocket box packed full of torches and hoses and snowboards and mountain bikes, everything else. And we went up to start the week-long Canadian glassblowing adventure that lasted a little longer than a week.
Amazing. How long did it end up lasting you?
It lasted the entire Bush presidency.
Awesome.
I just, it so happened I graduated from school right when he kind of got voted in, and I was like, well, the rest of the world's pretty neat. I was like, I can drive to another country and then just drive around up there. That's pretty neat. And this was pre-9/11, pre-9 a lot of things. So, I went up there, and it was amazing. Canadian people are some very nice folks. I literally just walked around and said, hey, do you know where I can start a glassblowing studio? Hey, do you know where I can build a glassblowing studio? Went all over Granville Island, their art district. And eventually some guy was like, yeah, I do know a place you could set up a glassblowing studio. He set me up with a guy who owned a car stereo shop, and this dude was super cool. He rented space to all sorts of different artists. And so set up a glassblowing shop there, got an apartment in North Van. The really cool thing about Canada is they just really want first in a deposit. So coming from the States, it made getting set up in places much more affordable. And I became one of the few glassblowers for Vancouver pre-9/11.
Jeez, dude. Yeah, that's awesome.
It's cool. Yeah, I was able to put some glass in Mark Emery's very first shop up there, which was interesting, and then the original Blunt Brothers and stuff, and started working right away with so I had my shop set up, but it was expensive, and I was excited that there was another glassblower in town, and his name was Hippo Glass. His name was Jesse, and this famous dude, well, he's famous on the mountain because he's got a giant red beard. He's a badass snowboarder and a really great guy. Super fortunate to work with him, and he was also just getting set up to work with Marble Slinger, who was another glassblower who had just moved up to Canada right at the time I did, and was looking to kind of sync up with other shops. So I got to blow glass with those three guys for quite a few years up there. That was really awesome.
Yeah, that's some serious influence too. That especially when you move somewhere new and get settled in, and all of a sudden you kind of start creating your own little mecca up there. Yeah,
I mean the mecca kind of just developed around us with the help of Bubble Man and a few other awesome patrons. They kind of helped establish a little more of a glass scene in Canada that was really neat. Some higher end glass artists came up, and obviously, meeting Marble Slinger, I didn't really know who he was or what the deal was. And as a glassblower, it's so interesting. We all have these little egos. We're in our own little bubble. Everybody tells us we're great. We're the neatest glassblower they've ever met. Our mom thinks we're awesome. And then we go out and, we meet other artists. And I think it's so important to remember that even though we're in this little bubble, where people tell us we're awesome, and, we have some collectors and some customers, that we're all just, average people out there trying to make stuff. And it's cool. Sometimes it turns out great. Sometimes it doesn't. And just having that humbleness and that humility, something I still try and work on, but I think it's super important as makers.
Yeah, I agree.
And yeah, it was really interesting and great for me to start working with some amazing artists. Slinger really had a lot of amazing techniques that he had learned, in the Glassworks Park area down in Seattle there. And it was a huge learning experience for me, really fun. And very fortunate to have met, those other glassblowers up in Canada. And then now there are hundreds of glassblowers up in Canada. It's amazing. I got to go to the first Great Canadian Glass Gathering.
Nice.
Way back in the day. And it's really neat. I'd like to think I had a little bit of influence on that scene, and it's really neat to see it develop.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it, man. And I think it's the overall experience to be in a studio space, because like myself personally, like I grew up self-taught pretty much. Didn't really get into a studio space until maybe like 10 years into what I was doing. So like I had all these struggles and ups and downs and growth, learning shit, stuck in the same rack and rake rut, whatever, for my wholesalers and stuff. And then once I got into the studio space and started becoming exposed to other artists, I mean, it was completely changed my life and my glass game too. Just all the different things that you can pick up and absorb and questions you can ask, because like, as early on in the day when we started this, you walk into some studios and they just like want to throw a towel over their bench and you can't even see their setup, kind of secret shit, compared to even what it is now. So for you to be able to have that experience, man, it's, especially with some early on trailblazers like that. And then yourself too, like you're saying, is the fact that you kind of helped grow some roots there for what is now an amazing glass community. And then it's still growing. Like some of the glass, I have some good friends up there in the Canada area, that glass blowers, and it's fun to see their journey and just to kind of see the growth of just the area up there and how things are moving, and all across Canada, not just in Vancouver or whatever. It's pretty cool to see, man. And it seems like too, like you got the fuck out of this country like in pretty good timing, because in terms of things were getting a little volatile around here, for a bit.
Yeah, it was tough, but it was also tough up in Canada, especially as a glassblower. I didn't realize, but moving to a place that doesn't have any glassblowers means you have to re-educate and reestablish an entire market.
Yeah.
Because if they don't have a local glassblower, then they don't see any reason why there should ever be something with a price tag higher than like $60, because they've never seen a pipe more expensive than $60. And I mean, maybe sure down in Washington, but so that was an interesting education process. You'd have people from like the actual cannabis world that would understand it a little more, or the internet. Obviously, this was right around the time of overgrow.com and a lot of those things that were going on. So there were some more avenues. And I was really fortunate with the exchange and things like that. It was very favorable at that time. But
did they make you get a visa or any of that kind of shit to stay there longer?
I was on vacation.
Exactly. Yeah.
Let's just talk about vacation. But yeah, it was a very, you can do things the proper way, or you can be on vacation and be okay with however it ends up.
Well, the reason I'm asking is because up in March coming next year, I'm going to the second annual Coral Reef Enthusiast Trade Show they have up there outside of Niagara. And it's basically a convention for just people that have saltwater aquariums and collect fish and, that kind of stuff. And I'm going to go up there to sell a whole shit ton of coral reefs and what have you at a glass. And the guy that runs the show, I actually met him at Disney working one day, and it's kind of the connection I made. And we were talking, I'm like, so what do I need to do about the laws and stuff? He's like, well, you can either go the right way and spend a bunch of money, or you can just go on vacation and just mail me all your shit, and you show up to the convention, and I'll have everything ready for you. I'm like, okay, let me talk to my accountant. I'll get back to you, kind of thing. So that's the reason I'm asking, because like I don't want to have to go and spend a ton of money on getting a visa and that kind of shit if I'm only up there for like 2 days.
Yeah, I mean, just yeah, it's the mailing stuff that might be an issue. But
Yeah, and that's my thought
never
too,
know.
because of import and
If he knows stuff, then yeah, I don't know.
yeah.
I wish you the best of luck. Things have definitely changed, not only post 9/11, but really just in this type of I don't know, when I think they track a lot more passports and things.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm good to go with that in that area, passport wise. But I'm just curious too, because a lot of glass blowers nowadays are going to Europe and they're traveling around the world and teaching classes and selling stuff, and so it's definitely a good conversation to have in terms of
Yeah,
the
be sure
travel.
to. We can talk a little bit soon about. I just did a European trip last summer. So
Yeah,
I'd love to
definitely
talk about it.
like to get to that for sure. Yeah, man. So you did the Canada thing for a while. The 2
the
weeks
Canada thing
turns
for a
into
while.
years. Yeah. So how many years were you up there for?
Well, that whole presidential term. So
Oh yeah, that's right. I actually asked you that already. Duh.
yeah, it was the full 8, and yeah, it was a very interesting time to come back to the States. I actually got yeah, so I basically came back to the States right around 2008, and it was a very interesting time to come back. I was fortunate enough to spend some time in Seattle on my way back, which was really neat to kind of see some of the things that were happening in Bellingham and stuff. Very fortunate that even when I came down, I was able to stay with some good friends in Bellingham, so I was very thankful for that. And in Seattle, and then yeah, really moved back to Colorado around 2008, and that was neat because it was the beginning of the Colorado Project, which I helped a little teeny bit on, and just kind of like was able to help along as it went. And then it was also really, the beginning of Colorado's legalization march, which ended up being a way bigger thing than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, and I'm glad you bring that up, because I really am curious. Someone who like yourself who's somewhat established, even though you went to Canada for 8 years. So your shit in terms of glass, but coming back home to a state that has really changed perspective on cannabis in a sense, and the legalization of stuff for the better, and then also the the amount of tax dollars they're making and helping out the education programs, and I mean it's a lot of good stuff going on, and then there's also growing pains too in the process, but coming out in there as a functional glass artist, seeing things becoming legalized, like did you fucking shit your pants and go crazy, or was it like what do I do next, like what what direction were you thinking about taking with that situation?
Yeah, it was really interesting because it was so unique, yet it was like watching it happen again, because Canada had like not legalization, but basically Canada had a really interesting thing while I was up there, that basically they just wouldn't adhere to certain laws, or they wouldn't enforce certain laws for a number of different reasons, which I prefer almost that, although there's no recourse if you're unjustly accused of something or something like that. But
Right.
it was very interesting in that sense. And then when I came down to the States, it was being done in a more lawful fashion because the laws had actually been passed. It was really interesting to see that go through. You'd go to parties where the next year you're like, there's no way they could have had that hash bash this year because the rules have changed.
Yeah.
Things have happened. But the years before you could totally do that. It was really interesting to see the massive influx of people wanting to work in the cannabis industry moving to Colorado, and glass blowers as well. Obviously, I think the glass blowing population probably quadrupled, which made it changed the scope of local sales, but was awesome for the Colorado Project, and just really fun for having all these awesome artists in this state, which is really neat. Other things legalization changed. What was interesting is that it just never got out of control. Or I mean, I've been to all these parties that had like the original hash bash. They had this hash bash that was they were giving away free dabs, and this was way back in the day, and it was a full bar and stuff. And I just never even saw it get out of control, which has honestly been the most awesome and almost a little bit surprising to me of watching this movement, that when you have a huge crowd of people and they smoke weed, they don't make fools of themselves.
Yeah, it gets super fucking chill compared to if it was like a
Everybody's
tequila
super
party.
chill. Yeah, I mean, you may not meet a ton of folks because
Right.
people aren't super outgoing in that situation, but it leaves a big question mark as to why it was really illegal in the first place.
Well, yeah, because the whole hysteria of the whole, fucking God, I'm having a brain fart. What the fuck was that pot movie they did back in the day?
Yes, reefer madness.
Yeah, Reefer Madness. Thank you, God. And they're like, well, if it's legalized, people are gonna be walking down the streets taking bong tokes and smoking joints and blah 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 blah. And it's like, you don't see that shit, even if it was legal. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I bring my little oneie when I take my dog for a walk, but I'm not like out in public exposing myself like a jackass. It seems to be in terms of a quote unquote drug, it seems to be one that's for the most part respected in a sense and not out of control.
Yeah. And even honestly, I applaud folks that I see out there, publicly consuming in a responsible manner. It's just, even if I saw somebody rolling around with a giant bong, taking a big bong hit, they're not getting in fights. I prefer not see them like driving a car, but it's just so different to the alcohol party atmosphere that we've all grown up in and just accepted as reality. It's just a stark contrast to it, and I would say a much more civil contrast too.
Yeah, you're not jumping off balconies into the pool. That's kind of bullshit.
Yeah, they just really aren't making fools of themselves in the same aspect. So it's like, yeah. So it's a welcome change. It's been good to see, and I really have heard nothing but good things about drunk driving going down. Obviously, the fact that like they'll take parents away from their kids and kids away from their parents if they're found with cannabis in certain states. That I think is the biggest disservice. Separating families like that. I mean, I can see why a lot of people move to this state because they don't want to have that on the radar and they don't want that to ever be a possibility because that's ridiculous. So.
Yeah, it's still surreal for me because like we have medical marijuana in Florida right now and it's still a clusterfuck of what they're trying to figure out, which to me is so stupid if they just followed what other states are already having set, and play wise, just follow the leader in a sense. But yeah, I can't imagine like saying the word bong for me, dude, is still kind of makes my skin crawl. It's like, man, but the cops coming to my house now because I'm saying the word bong. It's such a weird dynamic of
it is, especially as people that were in that atmosphere where if you said that in a shop, not only would they not buy anything from you, they're going to get super sketched out and shut everything down and all this stuff. And it's like, it's just a word and it's not even a bad word.
Yeah. So
it's amazing how laws change our whole vibe in certain aspects.
Yeah, completely. I know, it's so weird, right? So that being said, were you in Canada during Operation Pipe Dreams?
I was.
Yeah.
Okay. Originally my glass name was Cool Liquid Glass. And I was on the original glasspipes.org.
Dude, I totally know who you are now. Because
so I was Cool Liquid way back in the day.
You're like the fifth artist I've had on here that brought up their old name, and I'm like, dude, I've known your shit forever. Because I was like one of the first 20 people on glasspipes.org when it first came out, as like the fuck you to Ashcroft, thing. Like, this is not something bad. Here's a gallery of some incredible art being made, is type of thing.
Yeah, what was your name on?
I was Firefall Glassworks was my thing. I was trying to come up with some stupid thing, but I used to go by Firefall.
Okay, yeah.
But,
awesome. Yeah, I originally went with Cool Liquid Glass. Of course, I heard some Chihuly thing where he was like, glass is an awesome, super cool liquid. And I was like, well, came from the horse's mouth. I'm just going to believe that one. So I was like, I'm all in, and how about I make that my glass name? And then later, I think on the Talk Glass forums or whatever, I learned that it's maybe an amorphous solid instead of a super cooled glass. And between that and Ashcroft, I ended up changing my name and dumping my website. So that was interesting.
Didn't we all?
Yeah, it was interesting to be in another country, realize things were changing, and obviously this was a way to silence the hippies and give them something else to worry about. But
right,
it was a very interesting time where people were going to jail for sending craft places.
Yeah, and it's interesting in your perspective because you leave and then you come back and this during that time period when that shit all happens, everybody's freaking the fuck out. Like, what are we gonna do? And we're gonna make dildos and shot glasses for the rest of our life. And then some of us, which a lot of us did, just went even further underground and just kept grinding away, and selling to our friends or whoever smoke shop would potentially buy from us, under the table kind of stuff. And then you come back to this landscape that then has evolved again to a scene in Colorado that completely changes the landscape. I mean, it's like night and day compared to what it was. It's like you left the scene and then you came back and the scene was kind of the same, but while you're gone, all this turbulence went on that you missed.
True. Well, I feel like I was in with the turbulence in that, I still had some American accounts, and so that was kind of shut down from there. Obviously, any sending glass over the borders and things for other Canadian glass artists was pretty much shut down. And the internet was quite strong at that point, so I felt most of the pain for sure.
Okay.
I did have some local accounts, which was nice or whatever, and I figured it out. But yeah, it was very interesting because I definitely went from like between that and 9/11 were two really big hits. Like after 9/11, other countries, especially Canada, just really suffered because of the lack of American tourism. So it was really interesting. I think that like a lot of like all of my shops up in Canada after 9/11 went just on a buying freeze. They were just like, they didn't know what was going to happen. What happened, so.
Yeah, and then 2008 you moved to Colorado, which was like the downfall of the economy with the housing market taking a shit, and then people didn't have money to spend. But then at the same time, like the whole spice thing was starting to go across the country. So these smoke shops were making like a couple $100,000 a month in profit that then allowed them to afford to buy and help to rejuvenate the pipe industry.
Yeah, the spice thing was an interesting. I mean, not into it.
No,
but,
not at all.
It was interesting how it did allow shop owners to reinvest in glass or whatever they were doing. But,
yeah. Money laundering.
Yeah, I'm just doing the laundry. Let's just say that.
Yeah,
but no, they're they were investing in glass, and that helped push it forward. That little extra bit it needed to get rolling. And really, I think obviously states like Colorado coming online with going and finally doing the medical marijuana thing. I think that helped the glass thing along too a little bit, and it hurt it too. I mean, let's talk about that as well.
Yeah.
Every time you have legal herb in a state, I feel it hurts the glass sales because sometimes people would buy a pipe because they couldn't buy other things at that time, or there was the $350 heady was a pretty common amount, and you could sell a glass piece for that, and also people bought herb for those prices. So I feel that obviously the black market economy helped glass, and those were hand in hand with helping develop glass, in a more heady atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is, I've definitely seen that change with legalization, and I'm okay with it. I mean, I've shifted dependence, which is interesting in itself, but it is interesting to see the shift happening. And, the shift has happened with concentrates and everything else in that respect as well.
Yeah, like here in Florida, like when the legalization for medical started, it was all tinctures and CBD oils and that kind of shit. And then there was a lawsuit that was just filed by the guys who initially helped get this thing rolling to allow flower to be distributed to patients, because you go to some of these dispensaries around the areas, and I've never gone to any of them, but everybody refers to them as all they're doing is selling hot dog water basically. And if you really want like good medicine, you have to go into the black market to get it, or just the same person you've been seeing. But now that these laws are changing, they're trying to figure out in the law sense, like, okay, if you're a dispensary selling flowers and you need a piece of equipment to dispense it medically, say aka a bong or a pipe, you legally have to buy it from the dispensary. You can't just go down to your neighborhood smoke shop and buy that pipe anymore, because that pipe that smoke shop is selling is actually for tobacco, but the dispensary is selling it for weed. So it's like, you know what I mean? So there's still all this gray area. So in Colorado, I know things started becoming black and white, but then when you leave the state, there's so much gray area, especially the states that are next to Colorado, because didn't they have like this huge like state class action lawsuit against Colorado because of all the exports that were leaving the state, kind of thing. Yeah. And then like I brought on Luke Zimmerman on the show several times. He's a cannabis lawyer out in Oregon, and he's also a copyright trademark lawyer. So we've had a lot of fun talks on the show. But we talked about it, like if you're in a legal state, sure you can sell legally a pipe made for marijuana. You can even market it for that in certain states. But outside of that, you can't market it that way. It has to be for tobacco use. And then if you're in a legal state, you have to be 21 to purchase it. But if you're in a non-legal state, you can be 18 because it's for tobacco. It's, you know, it's like it's all these fucked up gray areas that we all have to pay attention to make sure that we're not sitting in fucking jail for the rest of our life. You know, bullshit. So like, how have you dealt with that yourself? Is it just said fuck it and started making pendants?
I've let the market help me make the shift to pendants. It's also, I've loved it. You know, my pendant work, I've been doing the road trip thing for about 4 or 5 years now. I originally, even back when I was in Canada, I really loved how reversals turned into a vantage point type drawing.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a few pieces that I tried to do that with. And then, you know, maybe back in 2013, I did this piece that was called the Grower's Path, and it was all Rasta colors with a little road in it. And I made a bunch of, it had a grow light sculpted in it and a green thumb and all this stuff. But what I really liked about that was the little vantage point of the road. And so I worked harder and harder on trying to develop that. And you know what I've realized is you make a pipe for somebody, or you make a pipe. It gets sold or it doesn't get sold. So it sits in your case, or if it gets sold to a shop, it goes in their case. And so a few people see that. And then if that pipe maybe gets purchased by a person, then it goes into that person's case. And a few more people see it. Overall, the lifespan of that piece, you put a lot of hard work into it. It really only got seen by maybe a couple hundred people if you're lucky, more in your pictures, hopefully. But when you make a wearable, it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, everybody sees it. Everybody asks about it. And it makes real world connections for that person wearing it. It's amazing to me how I've just gotten straight up hooked up for all sorts of stuff just by wearing a heady pendant a lot of times.
Interesting.
Met rad folks that want to blaze you down. I've met, you know, girls. I've had great conversations. You just get stopped walking down the street, you know, depending on the pendant for sure, right? But that's another reason I've really felt the push for wearables, because I feel it makes this awesome connection that pipes do, but this is on a much more large scale, and it has such a broader base of appeal too.
Yeah. Yeah, the demographic audience, in a sense, that can appreciate that is in the millions compared to the hundred thousands, in a sense.
But, you know, my passion's been all over the place. Like I said, my grandfather was an inventor. My dad, you know, developed and built snowcats when I was a kid. I've done everything from I made and developed an all glass herb vaporizer for quite a few years called the Glass Vape, and it was it ran off of the heat of a soldering iron. The air never touched anything but glass, and they would go fresh right over the herb. And then I also made one that you could heat up with a torch or on your stovetop. That was an herb vape, and actually utilized those to heal myself. When I did ceramics for quite a few years, I had a cough that I just couldn't get rid of, and it was, you know, glass, not really glass dust, but mostly ceramic dust, because I was in the ceramic studio so much for so many years, and I was cleaning up in there and doing all sorts of stuff, that I had to literally just heal myself by just vaping herb for quite a few years. And obviously it was probably the not smoking part that helped me as well. But, you know, if you look at what pure THC does for skin cancer and other things, it seems like it's probably not a bad idea to inhale some pure THC occasionally if you're down with it.
No, dude, 100%, which is my biggest excuse and reasoning for why I have partaken for it and still do to this day, is because from what I understand, like cannabis, there's so many different little specific elements that are in the flower itself compared to like your extracts that are super beneficial for your body that are only found in marijuana. It's not found anywhere else in the world. And there's a specific name for one of the things that's in it. I can't remember what exactly it is right now, but it's an expectorant, so it really helps to clear your lungs out. So you see, like, people that are cigarette smokers, but they also smoke cannabis on a regular basis, they get their lungs x-rayed, and their lungs are clear because they've been partaking in cannabis to clear all that shit out of their lungs. I mean, they may end up getting lung cancer from the cigarettes down the road, but that's a whole other thing. And I'm the same way, dude. Like, if I had a really bad cold, I'd take a little break from smoking, and then if I saw a cough, I would get it out of my vaporizer, and it would clear my lungs out within a week.
Yeah, it is amazing. So with the vaporizer, you know, it was my product there for quite a while, and so I would introduce it to somebody, and I could tell right away if they had some lung issues or if they smoked by how bad they'd cough off the vapor. Because
Interesting.
you could kind of judge your lung health by, and also if it, some people's lungs just get more irritated than others quickly. But I could tell that smokers would cough off of THC vapor much quicker than, say, a non-smoker or athlete or whatever. So it was a big one for me, and I'm really very happy and proud to have healed my lungs and not have a cough anymore.
Yeah,
sure.
that's amazing. Yeah, and that's like on the health side of things. That's something that when you're cleaning your studio, like sweeping your studio is probably the worst thing you can do because of all that little fine little particles that go in the air that you can't see unless you have like super bright spotlights on, where then it looks like it's snowing in your little studio space.
Totally, yeah. I'm always known as kind of like the there. I worked at Shackman Studios for a while, and we had like a kid that would come in and sweep up, and I was like, okay, wait a second. I care about you, and you care about you, and you're going to be in this industry for a while. Let's learn how to sweep properly.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, you are doing this with you've got lots of motivation, but we got to drag that sucker slow and get out the spray bottle.
Yep.
Get these dust
Dude,
particles low.
I had to do the same thing at work. Like I work in 4 different stores at Disney, and little by little, I would tell the cast that I work with, like, if you're cleaning the studio space, here's how to properly do it. And it was, again, I told them the same thing. It was for their health and safety, because I'm not always going to be there working. They have to understand that what they're exposing themselves to. And a lot of people don't take that into consideration, no matter if you're a glass blower or not. It's just those little small nuances of maybe you don't know because you're ignorant about it, but ignorance isn't always bliss. And to have someone like yourself do that's pretty awesome that you took that kid aside and did that, because that'll stick with them probably forever, and then you can pass that on to somebody else down the road.
Totally. And I mean, I hope that it's interesting because you come up to somebody, you're appreciative that they're already cleaning up and stuff, and you don't want to be a nag and like tell them how to sweep the floor, but you should probably tell them how to sweep the floor.
Yeah, there's a way to do it for sure.
Especially if you're trapped on a torch right next to them, and you can see particulate in the air when it kicks up into your torch flame. You're like, oh, yeah.
Dude, it's the worst. That's what made me aware at work that was going on. I was like, I turned my torch off immediately because I was like seeing all the little sparks going on my flame. I'm like, what's going on? And I turn around and the chick's behind me sweeping the floor. I'm like, dude, let's talk about this. So yeah, it's good shit. Good shit. Yeah, man. But I think it's interesting too. Like you being a maker and also having this lineage in your family of creative people like that. It's fun to have that kind of brain. I mean, I know it's not always a positive thing because you can go in so many fucking directions and get lost on the way. So it's cool to see that you found some specific areas that you're able to fully hone in on and come up with a product like that. And that.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. So I mean, I don't go out looking to invent something. Something pops in my head and I'm haunted by it. I'm like, will it work? Will it not work? Well, I can't find out unless I make it. And then I make it and I'm like, ooh, well, people, is the market ready for something like this? Is it 2 steps ahead, or is it 1 step behind, or has somebody else already done it? Or it's really weird. Like it just pops in my head and I'm like, oh no, I've got to make it.
Yeah, there's no turning back.
And I mean, that's really how the pedal happened too.
Yeah, it's a good transition.
In about 2011, I was on, the GLDG.
Yeah.
The glass. Wait.
It was a GLDGA.
Yeah, wasn't it the S?
It was a fucking drama queen fucking session every day.
It was, and wasn't it like fart glass? I think it was fart glass.
Probably, it sounds right.
Or something like there was some extra letter in the art glass, something in the URL. I think it was fart glass.
Yeah, it didn't make sense.
But yeah, so where were we on that?
The pedal.
Yeah, the pedal. So somebody posted originally that there was a Herbert Arnold torch for sale in Delta, Colorado, which is like way across the state from me in this teeny tiny little town. And I called the dude up and I went out there. I called him up and I said, okay, I'm going to drive out now. I want this torch, because this was 2011 and it was a Herbert Arnold for like $1,100, a 40 mil. And wow. I couldn't believe that, this was, the economy was just kind of getting, maybe it was 2010. The economy was just getting going again. He didn't really know the value. I drove 5 hours to go out and check out this torch, and it turns out that a guy that I had actually learned how to do the dot box from and really kind of taught me to make multi-sectional headies proper way, his name was Koa. It used to be his torch.
Huh. That's awesome.
He had gotten some guy to buy it for him. He had kind of been in and out of jail, I guess, and then actually passed away of an OD.
Oh, that's terrible.
Really, he was, he and this guy named Reagan were two glass blowers I worked with up in Crested Butte. We had a skate shop that was right where the pizza shop is now, or we had a glass blowing shop that was right by the skate park. It was awesome. Our exhaust fans just blew right into the skate bowl.
My God.
Yeah, we had this thing called a Hobart. It was an air intake heater, which was awesome for blowing glass in a ski area. And I worked with this guy named Koa. Long story short, he had passed away. I ended up buying his Herbert Arnold torch. And I'd always wanted a 40. I got to use Marble Slinger's 50 when I was up in Canada and made like one of my favorite pieces on it. It was just amazing the way that the flame worked at the glass. So I got the 40, used it for a few years, and really wanted a pedal. And I wanted a pedal that would adjust the flames. Are you there?
Yep. Yep. I'm here.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so I wanted a pedal that would adjust the flames, and the Herbert Arnold works a little different in that it's not like a multi-stage torch. It scrolls through the flames via these rollers and cams in the back and this plate that gets moved by one handle. So I was like, I just want to turn that knob. And, I originally asked the guys from Herbert Arnold, I was like, hey, I want to be able to like turn this knob with a pedal. I know you guys have a pedal that just turns on and off the fuel, but I want to like scroll through the flames. And they're like, there's a guy in East Germany who made one with like 2 pieces of rope and some like pieces of wood. And I was like, really?
Dude, I told.
Like, yeah, he did it.
Yeah, I heard about that shit. I know exactly what you're talking about.
And so this was from like Jürgen himself, the guy who makes the one guy that kind of tunes and assembles the Herbert Arnold pedals. He was out at Glasscraft tuning the torches, and that was when I originally talked to him. And so a few years went by, and I was like, man, I still really want that. And I can't even find pictures of the East German one on the whatever. So I went through like a 4-year prototyping process. It started with a metal thing and some cords and literally some ropes and some pieces of wood, and it evolved to bicycle cables and housing and some handmade metal apertures that was on the torch. And I was still using it the whole time because I was obsessed with using the pedal and having all the flame variation, especially that a Herbert Arnold torch would provide. And one thing I really like about the Herbert Arnold torch is it's basically like outer oxy on all the time on all the different rings. So that kind of like that sweet spot when you turn the outer oxy on, whether it's a Carlisle or a GTT, and you get that really nice shoulder to the flame of your center fire. Herbert Arnold provided that in all 3 sizes of torch, or in all the different rings and stuff. So I really liked that part. And so, yeah, the DOS pedal evolution kind of happened that way. It's changed probably 3 times, and I have had 2 different production versions of it. It's been a really fun experience, and really opened my brain up as far as like writing patents and working with an engineering process and working with water jet cutters, and then doing some of the machining myself. All those different things were really a fun break from glass. Definitely.
Yeah, like as we talked pre-show, I think that's one of for me personally, like one of the coolest things with this industry and the evolution over the last decade is all these little small side businesses that have opened up due to necessity, for things. And on that pedal you're talking about, I'm wondering if it was you that I'm thinking of that I remember seeing about it. But I remember years ago about hearing about some dude. Was a German guy for them, so maybe it was him that was using wood and a rope, and they were calling it like a squeeze pedal or something like that. And it was like somehow it was like would roll the 2 pieces of wood together that would somehow constrict the hosing, and you can adjust the hose that way by rolling this. You know what I mean? It was something
interesting. I don't know that this would work for a Herbert Arnold type of a situation.
Yeah, it wasn't for a Herbie. It was for because I was looking for a one for my Carlisle. This is back when Snodgrass was making his gunmetal case ones, and so doing the research.
It's so cool that Snoddy made a pedal.
I know, right? So, but again, it's all out of necessity, which is,
It totally is.
you know, the the foundations for being an entrepreneur.
And
Or
it's like we're all one big team too. I've been really realizing that more with my pendant work lately, where I'm buying opals from Grandpa's Glass and Profound Opals, and I'm tagging him and everything, and I'm buying Marini from David Kamensky and Ian Michael and Golden Gate and stuff, and I'm trying to tag them and everything. And really, it's like, we can all self promote and do these things together, and it's really been to my benefit every time when I try and share the process with others, whether it's using little parts of their stuff, whether it's their Marini and different things, or the opals. I'm really excited on that next little step of teaming up as in a little bit, because you can't do it all yourself. I'm that DIY guy. Like, I garden, I do a lot of mountain biking and work on all my own bikes. I obviously make the pedal, and I do a lot of my own glass blowing, and I make a lot of my own Marini, and it's fun, and I've really enjoyed doing a lot of it myself, but teaming up is important as well. And I'm really starting to learn even more about that and really reaping some great benefits from it. I'm really appreciative of it.
hell yeah, yeah. I mean, I think the collaborative concepts in our community right now, like, because like as we evolved, the collaborations began to happen, and you would see pieces that you could tell the two artists that work together, their pieces or their components or whatever. And then it started to evolve where like two artists or three artists or a whole community would come together and make a piece that was a true sense of a collaboration, where it was little intricacies of each artist was in there, but it was taking like five guys and making them into one person that created this one piece. And it's fucking awesome. And then at the same time, like what you're saying with your pendants, like, not only are you collaborating with these guys, but you're also supporting them at the same time, and they're supporting you. It's fucking awesome.
It's interesting where it seems to be another facet of the collaboration where it's almost like, you're doing it up front. I'm making the initial investment because I like the opals. I'm going to push the opals, and then the opals, and then, maybe they'll link and repost one of my pieces or whatever. And so it's a different way to collab that I think it helps keep the prices a little more in check. Whereas if two artists go in on something, they have to, first travel to meet with each other, and they kind of want to charge double the price for the piece, which is great sometimes, but other times it becomes a more difficult situation, as opposed to if you would have just purchased some things outright and used that stuff in your work. And I like it both ways, but it is interesting to see, multiple different ways to work together in the glass world.
Yeah, and it's the ultimate sense of community, when it comes down to it. We're all batting for the same team in a sense,
Yeah, I mean, we're on Team Glass. We want people to like glass and buy glass and to see all the neat stuff that we see and to be inspired by that. Because, I mean, that's how we're going to keep fostering and developing these collectors. And hopefully they'll like it because it's awesome and unique, and not so much because of a certain person made it. Now, I know there's always going to be popularity and famous popular names and, the ability to flip glass that was made by certain people, but I'm just hoping that we can educate the consumers enough to where they can love something because of what it is more than because of who made it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that.
But on the other side,
Yep.
I'll also say that, I'm really trying to up my marketing game too. And I understand that I'm not jealous of those other people. I'm trying to learn from them. And I'm appreciative of what they've shared and how they've kind of blazed the way for a lot of these things.
Yeah, and it's us, our generation that grew up in the glass, and as we've all evolved from going from flowers to concentrates back to flowers, from 18 mil to 14 to 10 mil to 12 mil to 10 mil to 14 to 18. It's we're all bouncing all over the fucking place trying to keep up with this shit, and then all of a sudden social media happens, and we're all like, what is this thing? This is fun and distracting and fun, and there's a shit ton of haters out there, and now you're exposing yourself to all the haters, and and then we learn how to ignore all that shit, and then also learn how to market ourselves in a whole different way of vulnerability that we never even had a concept existed or would ever exist.
Totally. I mean, we're vulnerable now to our own collectors and fans, which is the best part. But then we're also vulnerable to haters and whatever that is, which hopefully someday I'll be famous enough to really get some good haters because I feel that's when you really made it. But we have that, and then we're also very vulnerable right now to the shift in the market and Asian imports. I mean, this is huge. It's happening right now, and it's a huge shift, especially I would say in the dispensary market. I went up to Breckenridge at the beginning of the summer, and part of the reason I decided to really stop making pipes this summer was people really wanted to see my pendants, and they didn't ask even about the pipes, so that was interesting. And these were dispensary workers. And also, I went in there, and there were Chinese ripoffs of a JD Wormhole rig for $50 retail.
Fuck.
And there's no way that there's the fact that it's a ripoff, and that sucks. And then there's the fact that it's $50 retail. I'm like, I don't think I could make that for $25.
No, not at all.
My cost.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah. So, there's definitely I've seen a shift, and it is changing. The world is changing, and it'll be interesting to see if tariffs and things can affect the imports. I don't know how all this stuff's getting in here. I can make some guesses for sure, but are all these pipes illegal imports if they're actually smokable pieces imported?
Yeah, by law.
Yeah. So where's the American dream of starting to stomp on this? Because it's going to happen. It's going to kind of crush the pipe making industry. Or it may all shift, but it'd be nice. I was very fortunate in the fact that I could make pipes for a long time and get paid a decent wage as I developed my skills, and I would like to see other glassblowers be able to do the same.
Yeah. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that the legalization of shit isn't federal, so we don't have anybody representing us in the government that we can be like, hey, you guys need to stop these people from importing pipes so I can sell pipes. It's like you say that shit, and they're like, well,
so I can spend money in my community as I buy gas and I pay my rent.
Exactly.
And, it's like, yeah, we're definitely, it's the American way, unfortunately, to do things like this, but it has squashed it has made it more difficult to be an American glass craftsman.
Yeah.
I would say, or artist.
Yeah. And like talking, I had an interview before you, and we were talking about this kind of idea, and what he brought up, Chris Piazza is his name. He goes by Crispy Glass. He's a production artist, and he was talking with his dad, who's a business owner, and he's like, if you're worried about competing with the Chinese people, then you're really the Chinese import stuff. Then in a sense, you're marketing your glass to the wrong people, because the people that are going to buy the Chinese shit, they're going to buy it anyways, whether it's whatever it is, cheap wise. So it's I look at both sides of the coin, and like, yeah, because I've been in Florida dealing with the tourist industry. People that come here that want to partake for a couple of days, they don't want to spend $60 even on a spoon. They want to spend like $10 and throw it in the garbage before they get on their next flight, So I've been dealing with that shit for the last 20 years, and then the import influx has been huge. And then this state has blown up in terms of the glass artists that are here, and the industry and the community that buys our stuff and supports us, and the smoke shops. So it's all been, lately it's been very nice to see that. However, this import shit's still there. But I look at some smoke shops that are like, fuck the imports, we're going to just support the American glassblowers. But those guys are so few and far between. If you're a glassblower that wants to just sell to that kind of store, it's virtually impossible just, to make a living just by selling to shops that only buy American shit. So it's kind of...
And there's another facet to this that isn't really anything new, but we all grew up as kids. There was our local skateboard shop, and then there was the mail order online stuff too, or the mail order. And I was a kid, buying my motocross gear mail order because I couldn't afford to go to a shop, and that opened up more avenues. And now I think we're definitely experiencing even more so a customer direct atmosphere. And it's an interesting one that, you need to wade carefully. I appreciate every shop that's bought stuff from me and that's helped me, show my work to the world, and has helped me pay rent, and had great, business interactions with a lot of them. So I want to be really appreciative of that. Yet I also really want to connect with my customers on a one-on-one basis, and I want to create things for my collectors, like groups and stuff. And I want to garner that in a way that I don't feel anyone can do except for the actual artist. Like you go to a restaurant, you're hoping that the owner's there because he's going to make sure everything goes right because the customer is number one to him and the customer is number one to me when they come to me via Instagram or off my Das Pedal website or whatever it is. It's definitely a little bit of a changing atmosphere as far as that goes too.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a conflict too, because like I'm in the same boat. Like I had my smoke shop orders. I had like 8 or 9 shops in the area I'd sell to on a regular basis. Things went kind of weird with the economy, so then the social media thing started, and the customers started coming to me. So I started selling to the customer, and then the smoke shops got pissed off because you're selling directly to the customer and not to them, and it's like, we all got to be on the same page somehow or other, and I don't really know if that's ever going to happen, but it's, I'm in the same boat of being very appreciative and respectful of the owners of the shops that not only helped me get started from the very beginning, but still then supported my work for a decade or more.
Definitely. And they also helped establish a retail pricing for your work that others judge you on or pay via, based on that retail aspect. So, I mean, we should all definitely be very thankful for a lot of different things that shops have done for us and with us. And it's a change. I mean, it's got to be kind of scary, I think, especially for shops here in Colorado. I don't see a lot of spending going on for, people they get a rig. And then what more do they really need? Maybe need like a nail or a banger or whatever or something like that. So I just see less, and I live in a college town, but I see a lot less spending at the smoke shops, even though I live in a college town with like 15 smoke shops, so it could be oversaturation.
Yeah. I'm in an area that's got like 40, so I definitely know that feeling.
Wow. Yeah, Florida's always had a strong market. I mean, like I said, I brought work down from Berserker before I even started blowing glass and was able to make money off of his, not double my money, but actually resell glass down there. Obviously because his work was great at the time. But it is interesting to see Florida's market, and they've kind of always had large collectors, I think, that have been there for a long time. So
yeah, it's the cannabis community, man, has been so weird here for the last 20 years of being a pipe maker. People bringing in the goods, in a sense, the smokables and shit from out of state or wherever they were getting them from, and then the pipes were the same way. Everything was being imported to the state. And then all of a sudden the glass blowers started popping up, and then all of a sudden the growers started popping up, and all these ups and downs. And now again, I'm in the same concern for the smoke shops here, like we were saying earlier about with the whole weird thing about the smoke shops that sell pipes here. They might only be able to sell them for quote unquote for tobacco, and if you want to buy a pipe for dispensing your medicine, you have to buy it legally from a distribution dispensary place. So it's still weird. But then too, man, like I've had discussions, like I brought up Luke Zimmerman earlier. Like when you get into the whole legalization of things, then your government takes the apparatus that you create in a serious manner, where it might get to a point to where we have to actually create an instruction manual on how to actually use this rig that I made for you, so that if you burn yourself or if it breaks and you cut yourself, you can't go back and sue me in civil court because of default in manufacturing or something of that nature, because we're going to be considered liable for our pieces that we make to the customer. It's just those little weird nuances of little things which is why I bring guys like Luke on the show to discuss, because it's something I never really thought about. And then we're talking about this, and it made me think about the old lady in McDonald's that spilled the hot coffee in her crotch and got like $8 million for a lawsuit, because McDonald's was liable because her dumbass spilled coffee in her lap.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things to think about in that space. And as it becomes less of a novelty sale and more of like an intended use, there's definitely a lot to go along with that. And I see that space evolving rapidly, obviously, as it becomes more and more commonplace. I mean, people used to get their glassware from glass blowers, every goblet unique, and now we all just buy pre-made glass in that respect. So
yeah,
there's a bunch of different ways it could go. Thankfully, borosilicate can't really be mass manufactured in that same way, but it still definitely can be mass manufactured. So,
yeah,
that's
something I want to bring up earlier too. You know, like something I think that's kind of interesting right now too, with the concentrates and with that evolution with the electronic stuff. How like Puffco comes out with their little new thing that you can. That's an adapter for glass. So they're kind of collaborating with our industry in a sense to give a collector a base product that they can use in a healthy manner, and then they can still collect glass that's manufactured for that device. You know.
Yeah, that was neat to see. You know, I mean, I made, you know, herb vapes and other different inventions, so it was really neat to see that one, and I was thankful that they made something that other glass blowers, and they, you know, facilitated and really encouraged other glass blowers to make different attachments for it. So that is neat. It's cool. It's cool to see where it's going, and it's on a consumer level. I mean, we need to get people so they don't have butane torches and aren't heating up dangerous things. Like, you don't really want to be like using a butane torch in your living room all the time. And I've seen some burns that people get. I mean, we all know about burns being glass blowers, but seeing the burns people get from their bangers and torches is just kind of sad.
Yeah, it's stupid.
They're not professionals like we are.
I've seen some fucked up scars, man, like on some chicks that have like a perfect nail scar, like, and it'll be there forever on their leg, you know, or something like that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Jesus, dude.
No bueno.
Yeah, not at all. It's so funny, dude. So, man, before we get into the quickfire round, is there anything topical wise that you're into right now that you want to share?
Well, let's see. I'll share some of my other passions. So, like I was saying, I was a snowboard racer and competitor as a kid. And so now I've kind of kept with that. I'm a very active mountain biker and backcountry snowboarder and hiker. And recently kind of developed, I've really been into, as I garden and things, I've just been into nutrition and trying to dial that in. And so I recently got certified as a primal health coach. So that's kind of fun.
Fucking A, dude. Hell yeah.
Just because I really wanted to nail it down. I'm really into like different food and how it affects me. I've always played around with it. Was it, you know, living near gardens and then going to health food stores as a kid just because I liked alternative chocolate and really the canned like licorice and stuff as a kid. And then when I was a glassblower up in Canada, I got really into yoga because a fellow collector and guy who was near one of the glass shops I sold to had a yoga studio, and then got to take a bunch of raw food cooking classes and just kind of jumped around with that and really enjoyed learning. Primal health coaching has been really an interesting avenue, learning more about fueling my body with fats and reducing my insulin sensitivity. So really not doing sugar in the morning or sugar as much as I used to, which has really felt great.
Yeah, it's amazing, right?
Yeah, it's so crazy. Like we eat more sugar in one day than we used to eat in a year 200 years ago. Yeah. So it's amazing how many times, it's amazing what the human body has been able to deal with over these last 50 to 100 years of people just jacking their insulin levels, and then our body has to, you know, help solve that and then bring it back down, and then we jack our insulin levels basically daily, multiple times a day until it doesn't work and we get insulin deregulation, which is, it's been a really interesting thing for me to learn about as far as fueling my body and, you know, fueling my body to create great work and to not get lightheaded and pass out on the torch, but also like try and get into that flow state nutritionally and environmentally as well.
Hell yeah, dude! It's cool that you're bringing that up because I've had this talk a lot on the show, and you know, people that don't understand about insulin sensitivity, you know, it's all about your glucose levels spiking. Like having a bagel in the morning is the worst thing you can do for your entire day. Oh
no, you got to add a glass of orange juice to that and then a fruit smoothie.
Yeah, right.
Like, I did a smoothie. Everybody does the smoothie.
Exactly.
It's like, well, you just made it more accessible for you to digest all that sugar, and then what I call it's the carb train. I like to try and go as far throughout the day before I get the carb train rolling, because I know once the carb train starts rolling, and maybe there's some munchies in there mixed in, I'm just going to be in the kitchen for the rest of the day.
Yeah, so. Dude, it's the worst because like I'm addicted to sugar. Like I know I'm addicted to it. I mean, you give me a bag of Oreos and it's gone before I leave the store parking lot, kind of shit, you know?
Yeah, I always like to open the stuff as I'm walking out of the grocery store.
Yeah, I had to put the shit either in my trunk or in the back seat where I can't reach it. And if it's in the back seat, I'll still at a red light, like get out of my seat and go back there and dig the shit out of my back.
Yes.
It's the worst. But I've started paying attention to all that shit myself about 3 years ago, and like I cut sugar out of my diet. I drink like coffee black now, and I lost 15 pounds and within like the first month and a half of just cutting sugar out of my diet, like not even exercising, just cutting that shit out because of how my body began to regulate itself because I was just ingesting, you know, and even it's not even like pure sugars, it's like the artificial sweeteners that are in things you don't even realize are in there, or like going to get my Starbucks vanilla iced coffee and the liquid vanilla flavoring, it's a fake sugar, so your body reacts to it differently than it would to process regular sugar, so your insulin levels go through the fucking roof. You start burning off muscle instead of fat, so your fat cells stay there, and you know what I'm saying? It's like it's crazy, and people don't realize that shit. And then just recently I've been learning and listening to some shows about like gut biome and how important our gut and the bacteria that's in there is. And this guy was talking about people that have that are doing keto right now, that the keto diet as in a sense, quote unquote, it's beneficial. What it's actually doing is it's literally changing your genetics to make your genetics think that you're in starvation mode, that you're living in this famine, and because of all this fat you're eating, so it literally changes your genetic receptors to think that. So if you have produced children, you're exactly. And if when you have kids, your kids are going to be born with that genetics marker in their cells. They're going to be born immediately. Their body's going to think that they're in this famine and starvation mode, so they're going to store all this fat. And then when they're in their like, teen years, they're still storing all this fat because of the genetics that they have. It's so fascinating, and this is all new shit people are learning about now as we continue to study this stuff and the fads and whatever.
It's called the science of epigenetics, and it's crazy. So it can go and it just basically flicks little light switches on and off that can be very subtle, and sometimes it even takes generations for them to appear. But yeah, the science of epigenetics is real, and it's environmental, it's stress, and it's what we're eating, and it's totally real. And so it's a good motivation to try and live a less stressful life with, less bullshit that we're consuming, whether it's sugar in mass or driving in traffic or breathing exhaust, all those things. Really, we're learning that they have a bigger impact on us and our kids down the line. So it's very eye-opening and really an interesting area of study. And it was really fun for me to try and work through that and learn how to fuel my body for exercise. I'm 41 now, so learning to just try and be more mobile as I'm aging and, not have sore knees, not have a sore back. A lot of these things, really, a lot of the things I've learned have been just really learning to heal myself.
Yeah, which is awesome. And then you can take that knowledge and pass it on to somebody else like we're doing on the show. Yeah,
help others around me. It's awesome, especially when somebody has, it's like glass blowing. If you go to somebody and you try and teach them how to do an implosion pendant, but they've never blown glass, they really aren't going to grasp anything or remember anything. But if they've tried it a little bit, all of a sudden they're going to learn so much more. So I think that should be encouragement for other people. Try and learn a little bit about health, and then when you do meet some people or read some other stuff, it's going to soak in a lot better because you'll have this more basis to go off of.
Yeah.
And it's tough because it is really confusing, and there's a lot of different things to look at out there, but I think it's worth it as glass blowers. We have extra time. We have the ability to get out and walk around a little bit or control what we eat a little more sometimes, hopefully. And it makes a big difference in how we're going to feel in the future, our aches and pains, the quality of the work that we put out, and even, our own relationship, whether, if we're dealing with a stress state because we've already gone through the insulin dump and then the stress hormone that comes after you eat sugar, we're not going to really be our best to other people, whether they're our customers or our shop mates or our family. So
yeah,
all that makes a big difference, I think.
Yeah, it's huge. Because like when I started my journey, I started doing jump rope fitness, and it changed everything. Like it changed my physique, my mental state. I mean, you name it, my physiology. I mean, everything. It was fucking incredible. And I went through a divorce last year and a half ago, and still being able to maintain that was probably one of the main reasons I was able to get past the heartbreak of that whole thing, you know, on a mental sense of things. And I don't know, man. It's so amazing. Like if you can just stop and do a little research. It all, you know. There's so much bad information out there, but to find the right information, it's I guess is key. You know.
Yeah, you know, and the food is one thing, and like you were saying with the jump rope, the exercise is definitely another facet for me. When I don't exercise, I'm not the person I want to be all the time. So I need to wring it out. I need to get tired. I feel like, you know, we're all our own little warriors. I mean, we've survived. The reason we're here is because we're a successful warrior somewhere down the line. And, you know, I think you got to wring it out and wear yourself out to really be your best sometimes. And so I appreciate the fact that I get to do that as a glassblower, and I encourage others to really go out there and start slow. I mean, you don't even need to get out of breath. It's just nice to feel tired at the end of the day from physical activity.
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting too. Like I'm sure you've experienced the same thing, but you know, being a glassblower, it's kind of meditative in a sense. You know, what we do, especially when you're in that flow state, and we breathe real shallow. It's, you know, kind of repetitive, but it's a shallow breathing that we do. And our cardio goes to shit. So you go up a flight of stairs and you're out of fucking breath because you don't really get that good cardio exercise that you should be. And I wasn't really aware of it until I went up a flight of stairs one day, and I'm like, God, I am out of breath. This is fucking stupid. So that's when I really came to, you know, conclusions that I got to get some cardio in my life, you know, and again, doing the jump rope stuff was the best cardio I could have done. Not only because I could stay at home and not have to worry about running around the neighborhood, but you know, it's fun and I enjoyed doing it, the challenge of it. And I don't know.
You could even do that in the air conditioned atmosphere too in Florida.
Yeah,
which is kind of nice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, as long as you have high ceilings, you know, it's
Right.
it's ideal. Like my old bedroom I used to have, when I moved out of my ex's and moved in with a friend of mine, he had low ceilings, popcorn ceilings too, which was always fun when I would be getting snowed on every once in a while, smacking the ceiling, you know, some shit.
Don't worry, it's just asbestos.
Yeah, exactly right. I'm getting healthy and breathing that shit in.
Yeah. I can feel my lungs getting healthier.
It's so funny. But yeah, I'm glad we're talking about this. And you know, down the road, man, I would love to like bring you on the show just to have this conversation. You know, like
I would appreciate that. That'd be really fun. It's and we could do it in respect to artists and craftspeople too, or just glassblowers too, talking about different stretches and different ways to
please
try and keep your back healthy. Other ways, you know, setting up an ergonomic bench. I may not have the cleanest bench, but mine is ergonomic, and I really appreciate that. And then also, you know, just trying to ways to clean up safer.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, I'm all absolutely, especially because it would help promote what you're doing. I mean, you know, you put all this time and energy and financial whatever into getting your certifications and stuff you're doing. So
Yep.
I would love to bring you back on and talk about it because it's definitely, to me, it's the number one key that we all have to pay attention to. I mean, the business stuff is all important, but all that shit goes away if you don't take care of yourself on a physical side, because the physical leads to the mental, leads to the emotional, then leads to focus and getting things done in a productive manner. It's all just snowballs, and it's incredible. I mean, you know, like you're saying, nothing better than getting up and getting a good fucking workout in first thing in the day, and then you're just jazzed up for the rest of the day. Maybe you need a nap
First
before,
thing in the day, afterwards. So, you know, I've done it both ways. When it's mountain biking, I find I'll go out and I'll be so tired I can't actually blow glass afterwards. So
Yeah.
in that respect, I'll go out and I'll work all day till 5, and I'll have that motivation that I need to finish this stuff and get done by 5 because I get to go ride before it gets dark, and I'm going to come back and I'm just going to be a puddle on the couch because that's how hard I like to ride my mountain bike. But yeah, there's definitely, you know, there's multiple different ways to do it. You can even do the lunch one, or you can do the yoga was a huge one for me, just learning that I don't need to go outside or do that. I can literally practice this stuff in a small room and feel that awesome exhilaration afterwards and really feel like I've done something and build core. So
yeah, that's the one thing I keep saying to myself that I have not done yet is the yoga thing. I got to get into it. It just for the stretching aspect of it, but then the strength part of it too that you get.
Stretching, strength, balance, and breathing too. Those are two very big ones. And then surprisingly enough, all of yoga is really just preparation for meditation.
Mm-hmm.
So yoga is basically wearing yourself out to the point where you can get into a meditative state after the yoga. Not necessarily something I'm really good at, but interesting nonetheless.
Have you tried the Headspace app yet?
I've not.
Oh, dude,
Sure.
it's incredible. Yeah, Headspace. It's like you get 10 sessions for free, and you can listen to the same 10 over and over. But it literally trains your brain how to meditate. It's fantastic. Yeah, and,
Awesome.
and the guy that narrates the talk over whatever has a slight British accent or English accent of some sort. So it's relaxing.
So he sounds so smart.
He sounds highly intelligent.
Yes.
So you get smart and you relax at the same time. But something else, like I had a friend of mine that was doing yoga and ballet fitness classes, and I had her on the show for I think she was like episode 3, and part of my goal with her was to have these talks, and she was less educated in the areas than what I initially perceived, so I didn't end up falling through with her, minus the interview we did. But I've always wanted to develop with some yoga instructor a yoga routine for glass blowers. We all do the same sort of movements when we're working, so there's got to be movements we can do beforehand to get us stretched and strong and on center.
Yeah, and really similar to that, I've talked to some other people that are really good at archery, and there's, like little preparations you do before you do a big move that's like a make it or break it move. So whether it's a little breathing exercise or something like that, it'd be fun to talk to some other people that do maybe like sharpshooters and stuff like that, how they get into that little zone right before the super crucial move. Because I've definitely it's like attaching that marble on the vessel. You're like, oh, it's going to be perfect. It's going to be perfect. Oh, it's 3 degrees off.
Yeah. Yeah, or doing symmetrical horns or some shit. It's like,
yeah,
it's
right?
the worst.
They're like, put the bad side on first.
Yeah, exactly.
Took me I heard that. I was like, oh.
Yep. Yeah. If you're left-handed, do the right side. If you're right-handed, do the left side, or whatever that is. Do your bad side first.
Bad side first.
Fuck yeah, dude. Well, it's good to know that you're into that stuff because it's as glass artists, we have this ability to design our life and all these dreams and aspirations you've always had. There's no reason you can't fulfill that shit as a glass blower if you just pay attention, do the right thing in terms of keeping your finances in check. If you can do that kind of stuff, and then get the fuck out of the studio.
Yeah, we have the ability to diversify, to work part-time if we want, all these different awesome options if we take advantage of them. And, all of us have gone through this learning process with glass, and then at some point it doesn't stop, but it levels out a little bit, and then it's fun to do something different. Like when I designed the pedal, I literally could feel my brain expanding every day, and I was like, whoa, I have not used my... Yeah, this is very interesting, and it was addictive. So it's fun to get out on some of those, and it's fun to almost use them as a treat too. You're like, well, if I work till 5, I get to go do my thing, and it can be a nice motivation in that respect as well.
Yeah, I have many of those myself too. I do the same thing. Like I do intermittent fasting, so I don't usually eat my first meal until about 4:30. So that's usually dinner time, and I'm like, all right, I'm starting to get hungry, or my energy, I always just feel myself out. Like I'm pretty in tune with my physical aspect of my energy levels and that kind of stuff. And I know if something isn't quite going right, my focus isn't quite there, it's time to refuel. But again, it's usually I get up, I have a cup of coffee, maybe 2 cups of coffee on the way to work, and then I'm in my zone till about 4:30. And then I have like a 4 or 5 hour window where I feast, and then I'm trying to break the habit of eating when I get home. Because I get home at 11:15.
I'm struggling with that as well too. I do the intermittent fasting, but it's really I stop eating when I go to bed, and then I wake up and don't eat till about noon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd really call it intermittent fasting, but
Right.
the munchies are tough, man.
Dude, right? But listen to that guy that I was talking about earlier. So the show, it's called Impact Theory, and this guy Tom Bilyeu does, and it's a 5-day week, 6-day week show, and every day is a different theme in a sense. And Saturdays he's been doing this health talk. It's a health theory, he calls it, and he's been bringing on these people who study and focus gut biome and those kind of specific things and areas. And this guy last week he was talking about he's basically saying you got to it was basically his 3 S's for life was sleep, sex, and what was the third one, honey? Oh yeah, sun. Sleep, sex, and sun. If you can get those three
gotta get
things in
that
your
vitamin
life.
D.
Yeah, exactly. So, but his big thing he was saying is like you have got to not eat 3 hours before you go to sleep, and you can actually test and study and follow your heart rhythms and stuff when you're sleeping. Because when you're sleeping, you should have a really low resting heart rate. You know, like say 60 to 80 beats a minute, maybe around there, maybe even lower if you can get there. But if you eat before you go to bed, your stomach has to digest all that to start the process of digesting your food, which means your heart's active and working, which means your brain, in a sense, can go to sleep, but your heart is still super active and pumping. So your heart doesn't actually get a chance to slow down and go into that resting state to help itself heal, you know, type of thing. And I've talked to different medical doctors and people. I have friends who are nurses, and they're like, oh yeah, you can eat before you go to bed. Like my one friend was just like, sleep on your right side of your body because on your stomach empties into the right side of your body. So when you're sleeping, it can digest easier, you know, kind of thing.
That's a heartburn trick, I think, which is interesting that when you do change the way you eat, you don't really get the heartburn as much. But yeah, that is very true. And, you know, add to that cannabis consumption too close to bedtime, and it really kills REM sleep. And then you heat up at night if you eat a lot before bed, and so you get what's like night sweats, basically. So definitely a way to quell that is to eat less protein towards the end of the day, and also just less actual food before bed. Especially if you live in like a hot climate. I can imagine like in the middle of summer in Florida, adjusting what you eat before going to bed could make for a much better night's sleep, and then you're going to wake up more rested, and it's going to be a whole cycle that's going to trip off in that respect. Yeah,
dude, and the cannabis thing too, like you're saying. Like I've had the whole ADD thing my entire life, and the cannabis affects it negatively in a sense. Especially if I come home and I'm all jazzed up and I'm like, oh, I'm going to take a bunch of bong tokes and make myself pass out and go to sleep. Well, I sleep like shit when I do that. It doesn't work. So, you know, everybody was in that mindset of, oh, take a quick bong rip, eat a bowl of macaroni and cheese, and go to bed. It's like the worst thing you can do for yourself.
My secret used to be some crunches or sit-ups if I was laying there in bed and couldn't go to bed, because it would pull the blood from my head down into my abdomen, and then it was a little easier to go to bed that way. But I have definitely used the other trick as well.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we can go on for days, I'm sure, talking about this. We'll save all this conversation for a complete episode or 4 episodes or however we end up working this down the road.
Cool.
So, yeah, man. So in the meantime, let's take a quick break, thank our sponsors, and we'll come back and it'll be time for us to crash a kiln.
All right.
Segment of the Wise Guy Radio Show is brought to you by The Flow magazine. Since its inception, the focus of The Flow has been to provide a bond among members of the lampworking community. This has been accomplished by developing relationships with the finest artists and sharing their techniques with you through in-depth step-by-step tutorials. In every issue, you can enjoy great content with the hottest artists and cutting-edge techniques using the latest industry products. These features, along with the continuation of our Women in Glass edition, Glass Craft Emerging Artist Awards, inspiring gallery showcases, dynamic general interest articles, as well as health and safety information, make The Flow the leading international lampworking journal. And if you have not yet subscribed to The Flow, you can use the coupon code WISEGUY at checkout, and you can receive 10% off your annual subscription. So just go to theflowmagazine.com. That is theflowmagazine.com. All right, man, we are back. So
we're back.
Yes, nice and short break there. And thanks to the Flow magazine for sponsoring this part of the series here. And but yeah, man. So the Crash the Kiln round. I'm sure, as you know, we've all crashed the kiln throughout our glass career to get that ordered to the shop while they're still warm, like some fresh baked biscuits. And but I have 7 questions to ask you, and you can give me a 30 to 60-second answer per question. We can also expound upon them as typically happens here. And the first question I like to ask is if there's any living glass artists you'd like to work with or collab with that you have not with yet, and who is that artist and why?
I'd say William Morris is just somebody who I was heavily influenced by. He's not really a boro worker, but I'd say he's a torch worker because he seems to really sculpt a lot of glass with torches and everything else. Heavily inspired by a lot of his stuff early on, and then just the large installations. I don't know that I'd ever be able to work with an artist of that caliber, and I believe he's retired, but that is the guy.
Yeah, it's amazing when you look at the lineage of artists that have come out of Chihuly Studios or worked with him in a sense for years. You know, William Morris is one of those guys. It's just, you see his work, like you see like some of his old skeletal structures he would do, the bones and stuff.
Yep.
It's just phenomenal. If those listening, if you're not familiar with them, definitely Google them because you'll be.
And I mean, he
amazed.
was the janitor. He was the janitor, and he started blowing glass, and then he became William Morris.
Yeah.
So amazing.
I know it is. Yeah. So number 2 question is, what are your top 5 favorite colors in glass?
Ooh, yeah, that's a tough one.
Especially nowadays.
Let's go amber purple
Mhm.
to begin with, just because it has so much variation. It's been there for so long, and it's pretty awesome, especially when you combine amber purple and Cymax glass. It's got to be Cymax. I like those mystery adventurine colors. I love OG moss. That was like an OG color that I loved. Gold and silver. Will those count, or do they have to be a color?
No, dude. Gold and silver work. Yeah, fume's good.
Yeah, fume's fun. And then, I'd say for the pop, any of these cadmium yellows and oranges and reds, because when you put them next to black, I think they give a pop that we really didn't have in glass before that, as far as something that stands out so bright.
How do you feel about the reworked CADs?
They're watered down, so they don't really work in stringer applications like I like to use them. But
Agreed.
if you coil pot them up, yeah. So I've been using the North Star. It seems to be more dense.
Yeah, absolutely.
In stringer form.
Which is funny when you look back at the history of glass, and like Alchemy was like, not completely, but they were in a sense like, the manufacturer of the CADs back in the day. Like they were the go-to colors, and to see North Star really reformulate this stuff into, like, I love it. So it's all I use at work.
It makes very much financial sense of what Alchemy did, and it seems that's the direction their companies, they kind of go with what's making the most money at the time. And I mean, when they have artists that want to just buy a bunch of sticks of stuff and coil pot it all up and make solid color things, then heck yeah, I mean, I would fuel that industry. But for those of us who use it in stringer form, it doesn't work anymore. So it's double edged.
Yeah. Yeah. I miss acid yellow.
Yeah.
Such a good yellow.
It was a good yellow, although it wasn't as dense enough for me. I find that just the normal. Actually, check the new North Stars; they're less bubbly now too, which is neat about that one.
Yeah,
acid yellow was the super bright one, but it was slightly see-through, right?
Yeah, just a slight transparency to it. It was a little softer and work to work with compared to like a canary or a yellow crayon type thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Hell yeah! So number 3 is what is your worst injury in the studio?
I was thinking about that. I think it's just, having some like cobalt rods snap off and slice your finger pretty good, or some burns. So I'm going to knock on wood here and say, I think it's just been like small whatevers.
I'm knocking on it too, bro. I've had several, like I had Steve Sizelove on the number 4 episode. He's like, yeah, I've never really had a major injury in the studio. I'm like, dude, I'm knocking on every piece of wood in my house right now for you, please.
Yeah, no, I know I've had some decent ones, and I've had ones where I was like, I really couldn't even go in and go to the hospital, so I just cleaned it out, super glued it up, and taped it to a popsicle stick. Way wet.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is the beautiful thing about any glass cuts, is they're relatively clean, and super glue is pretty easy to find. So.
But man, it's amazing how fucking much you bleed.
Yeah, but that's just cleaning it out. That's nice.
Yeah, exactly. I like the positive perspective.
Right. Look at all that blood. It must be so clean in there.
Dude, I've been dripping like a stuffed pig before, not even realizing it, because it's such a clean cut, and then all of a sudden your rod's like sticking to your hand. Like, what is going on here?
Yeah, that almost brings back. I don't know. It's like one of those things that you go through multiple times in your career as a glassblower, and it's always the same. You're like, oh, yeah, time to shut her down and wipe this blood off.
Or like you get the one blister on your finger that every time you roll a rod, it like bumps on the blister on your finger, like the old shit.
Thankfully, I haven't had a blister that is raised up in a long time. I always put it right back near the heat, or my theory on a burn is you instantly stick it in your mouth, and then pull it out and blow on it. So
do the same shit.
Yourself breathing. You're not running under cold water, so it's not going to develop a large blister, and your goal is to get that sucker to leather up. So you look at it. You've already had it in your mouth, so you stop the burning as fast as you possibly could, and then now you're gradually slowing it down by blowing on it. and then maybe put it next to the torch flame again too if you're feeling extra ballsy.
Yeah, but doesn't it just taste lovely on that first little cool down?
Yeah, I've tasted burning human skin for sure.
Hey, at least it's your own though, so it's all good.
Yeah, right. I guess that makes it okay.
So number 4, when you're in the shop, do you watch TV, listen to the radio, or do you do both?
I am a big podcast guy. Lately, I've been watching some podcasts on YouTube. I do have a TV set up there. I try not to watch it, but I do put it in there. You know what's funny? I've been doing the virtual shopmate thing lately, where you'll
Hell yeah.
put a podcast on, and then go through Instagram Live and put up somebody else blowing glass. And I think it would be funny to get a little group of people doing that, so you were like accountable with each other to stay on the torch for longer.
Yeah, man. Years and years ago, when probably a decade now, when like FaceTime first started going, or maybe it was through Facebook, I don't remember. I had some friends, glassblowers in Colorado, and we would do that, like, because the times was a little different for me. So if I had a late night, I'd hit them up like, "Hey, can I work with you guys tonight?" And they're like, "Oh, fuck yeah!" So I'd stay up till 4 or 5 in the morning. You know, we wouldn't even talk or anything. It would just, just to have that company, which is why another reason I started this podcast, because I want to be able to be there to keep the lonely folks in their studios company while they're blowing glass.
Right, totally. So if I pop on Instagram and I just start watching you blow glass and I don't talk back, it's because I'm actually blowing glass at the same time. We're working together, bro.
Hell yeah. Well, they have that new thing there where you can like video collab or whatever they call it. I don't know. I've seen two people are seshing right now on Instagram on the same thing.
Yes, you can do that, which sometimes I'll do that, but other times I don't really want to be on camera. I'll just wear my ridiculously looking funny hat. And
Hell yeah.
Whatever.
Gotta love funny hats.
Right?
And
Yeah,
big
it's cold
sunglasses.
out there.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're in Colorado too. See, like the only time I've ever seen snow was like 4 years ago. I went to Colorado for a long extended weekend, and that was my first time ever in snow in 42 years. So I definitely have an appreciation. I can't say an appreciation because I enjoyed it, but I can't live in it.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, the worst for me is blowing glass when your fingers start to get numb. It's not very motivating to stay out there. So that was part of the motivation to do the health coach thing. And I've kind of dipped back into ceramics here and there. I bought an extruder and I've been playing around with some of that and making some clay marini and some other fun things.
Rad. Are you extracting from like riverbeds and stuff? Like actually?
No, so extruder is like, like that Play-Doh toy where you can squeeze out.
Well, I know
I basically bought.
Yeah, I know what the extruder is for sure.
So as far as the marini goes and getting different tints to my clay, I've chosen to actually go off of a porcelain base and then add like iron oxides and things.
Okay.
So that way I have the same COE, so nothing cracks or whatever, but I can bring different tonal variations.
Yeah.
In there.
And
have you ever seen it? It's called like Nirakomi is the Japanese version.
I'm sure.
It is a trip, man. They make, big marini. Like, I don't know. It's neat and it's fun to slice it. You do it all while it's really quite wet.
It's called Neokomi.
Yeah, probably butchering the pronunciation, but
yeah,
Nirakomi or something like that. But it's a fun one, and so I've been just playing a little bit with that, trying to find things to do when it's super cold out.
Yeah, my buddy Chris had on earlier. He bought an infrared heater for he's up in Illinois, Chicago, and it's called Mr. Heaters, and it attaches to a propane tank. So instead of having air heat getting sucked out of your studio space, it's just an infrared, like a microwave, I guess. I don't really know, but he said it was a game changer.
Those are cool. I've used like the other kind of propane heaters. Do they create carbon monoxide that you're going to have to? I mean, obviously you're venting your shop, but extra carbon monoxide has never really been exciting.
Right? I don't really know. That's why I thought this was intriguing, because it's an infrared thing, so there's really no exhaust or air blowing or anything.
And I've always worried about some of those because I've seen the plug-in electric infrared ones, and I'm like, if there was ever a slight gas leak in the shop, would that ignite it? I mean, hopefully not, but
or like, are you cooking your insides, not realizing it, kind of thing, like a rotisserie chicken or something?
Yeah, so I've done everything from the Carhartt overalls are quite nice and comfortable, and then a heated foot mat was one of my key things.
Yeah, that's what I hear everybody saying. Yeah, as a game changer, because I know here like it doesn't get that cold, but we had a winter where like I think they said our average cold that year was colder than Kentucky. and it was like
Yeah.
in the 30s for like 2 months. It was kind of crazy. So like, go in the studio, you turn a kiln on, and it's like it says 28 degrees in the studio. I should be in bed at home, kind of thing. But I was really, really warm except for my feet. So that.
Yeah, it's not too bad. And then once it gets a little colder than that, you're like the ends of your hands start getting cold because they're not in the flame. But those are the days you make large marbles and preps. So
Yeah. Hell yeah. Yeah. So podcasts, like which any specific podcasts?
I'm definitely a big Joe Rogan podcast fan. I listen to a lot of different health ones, and then I'm also because I've grown up I grew up riding motorcycles and mountain bikes, so I'm kind of a big motocross, supercross fan. So I listen to the Pulp MX Show, some of those other ones too.
Hell yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. So I like motorcycles, yet I don't ride them. It's so weird, but
That is. It's probably a good thing.
yeah.
though.
Well, I grew up riding them, and I got in trouble for like trespassing on people's land and stuff. And I was like, oh, mountain bikes are so great, and they're so quiet. You can go wherever you want. So as you see me riding through your front lawn and down your steps, you will not even be upset.
No exhaust fumes.
Yeah, no loud braps, so it's all good. Let's see other ones. Listen to like the Primal Health Coach podcast, and then Rhonda Patrick has a really interesting one. She's been on Joe Rogan a few times. Yeah, that's probably about it.
Hell yeah. Yeah, check out the Impact Theory. I think you'd dig it. He's definitely covers the gamut on everything from personal development to relationship talk. Like he brings his wife on and they have a little discussion together and different topical stuff.
Nice.
It's interesting shit. And then the Saturday shows is health theory that he's doing. It's all fascinating stuff. Yeah, it is so cool, man. In the landscape of education now, to be able to have all of this stuff. I mean, if you wanted to learn how to walk your dog and pick its dog shit up properly, there's probably a podcast out there for it.
There is, and I like it because it's interact. We all are starving for this information. We all want more information, but you can put the phone down and get it the old school way, audioly. And there's something really nice about that. After, everybody I'm sure is addicted to their phone like I am, or just screen time in general. It's nice to get less screen time and a little audio, especially when you're working glass.
Yeah, because I've listened to the same fucking music I'm over listening to.
Yeah, glass will kind of crush your music love sometimes unless you're really okay with listening a lot over and over again because you listen to so much.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You have any glass blowing theme tattoos?
I do not. I've got some glass already traded in for a tattoo to a few artists, but
Nice.
I haven't ever reaped the benefits. So, yeah, no tattoos at the moment.
None at all.
None at all. None at all at the moment. So, we'll see.
Hell yeah.
Any tattoo artists out there? I'm still down to start building up more trades for. Yeah, that's the thing. I would just really be stoked on like trading with other artists. Their art for my art.
I love it.
I'd be more into.
I love bartering. Massages, tattoos, you name it, art.
Me too. I mean, if you can get money out of it, more, it's always turned out better. It's always been a good experience for me. So
Yeah.
very fortunate to have that currency and be able to make it.
Yeah, exactly. If you could describe the sound of glass cracking, whether like an actual sound it makes or even like a physiological sensation that it does to you when glass cracks in one word, what would it be?
It's definitely a tink. It enters through the ears and stops at the heart. It's like, it like shakes your whole body. You're like, what was that? No.
That's a great way to describe it. Yeah, it's the worst, especially with all these bridging and things going on nowadays when you really don't know where the crack's coming from.
Right? Some of those little bridges are some of the loudest pops ever.
Yeah,
But,
right?
yeah. I mean, we grew up in the Chinese black generation, so we all know how bad that could be. Not only that, but North Star and Glass Alchemy were really testing colors on us at a retail price for quite a while there.
That's a great way to
especially
put
all
it.
the greens. Like we went through
Oh,
a series of
God.
greens that they were like, oh, those check and that checks and that checks. And so it wasn't even a crack sometimes. It was the check that you had to deal with later.
Yeah, I'll never forget the very first time I was shown how to do a wrap and rake, and it was with the original jade green, like back in the day when there was like one green. And so I did my first wrap and rake, and I'm like, damn, this is pretty cool. And I pulled out of the kiln the next day, and that green literally raised itself off the surface where it cracked along the edging frame of the color all the way down, where you could like rub your hand down it and really just feel that sharp edge of in a spiral going down the pipe. It was a cool scientific thing to learn. But damn, was that shit frustrating.
Yeah, it's tough. I really feel that the color companies could have approached that a little differently with a little more testing. I feel like they do that now.
Yeah, there's definitely more testing.
They do that now. More testing. So.
Yeah, a little heads up would be nice.
Hey, this maybe doesn't go well with clear.
Yeah, or anything, even itself.
Or anything other than itself.
Yeah. Jesus. And then the green would just like get all grayed out, and it was just garbage.
Yeah, that was tough. And then obviously then we were like, ooh, Chinese colors coming. It's a fraction of the cost. And, you know, I'm thankful for Cobalt too, but definitely taught me some things. But the others, I wish I hadn't really.
Yeah. I've used the shit out of Chinese white. I make Olaf for us at Disney, a little character, and he's a solid white. He's like 16 or 19 mil rod.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
And so I've really learned that color, like inside and out, how to work it properly, how to mix it so it doesn't crack, the whole 9 yards. But it's being discontinued. And the last batch that the factory in China had, we bought, so nobody in the country could buy this anymore because I'm making Olaf at Disney. So, which was kind of a funny thing when it came down to be. And I only learned this from talking to some cats over at Troutman, at his glass place. And so the factory went back up. I guess they had a burn or something like that. Like they had 3 factories. One of the factories burnt down. So then they did a rebuild or some shit, and they made it again. And now it's being discontinued. So now you have like the striking Chinese white, which is the weirdest shit I've ever seen, and then the jade, which is sketchy.
Yeah, I still use the old school white in my Marini work, and I used to use it a lot for dot boxes because I would use the white and the black, and they would play off each other pretty good. But interesting. So does the creamy or the striking white work for your Olafs, or you have to just do the old school white?
Yeah, I'm just using the old school right now, and I got a couple samples of the stuff in from Mountain Glass of the striking white. They're like, hey, just check this stuff out. And it reminded me a lot of like steel wool, like just the way the texture of it is. It's just
weird.
Yeah, it is. Like the Chinese white already had a texture to it, but this stuff is like kind of pitted feeling. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense though how it strikes white. I don't know. I want to learn like why it does that.
It's definitely interesting. That the original Chinese white, I believe, is just titanium dioxide or titanium oxide in there, in huge quantities.
Yeah.
And I actually had I was at like a Champs or an Age or something. I had some old guy come up to me, and he was talking about how he helped get some of the white developed. He said you could use those white rods as a knife sharpener. Now, don't hold me to it. I haven't actually tried. Huh. That was what he said. He's like, oh, these rough white rods. He's like, you can use them as a knife sharpener, which still kind of trying to figure out how that would work. But
yeah, I could see that. Weird color. But dude, it totally is. Like if you do a cross cut, like the 19 that I use, you can see where it's been the extruding process, like it's been dipped and dipped and dipped and dipped and dipped, and there's like this tree kind of.
I feel like it restrikes, and that's actually kind of more of a second batch because I had some of the very original first batch, and I felt like if you looked at a cross section, it was more solid.
It was all smooth, right? Exactly.
And then as they came through, then there was those rods that were slightly lumpy. I use a lot of Chinese white myself. There were rods that were slightly lumpy, and then I use it still for my stringer work for the mountains on my road trips.
Oh, okay.
So, and it works in deep encasement for me, and I've never had a problem with it as long as I pull it or use it in the flame a little bit before I put it in a finished piece.
It has to be mixed. It's one of those colors that like you almost have to like heat it and spin it and twist it and mix it while you're doing what you're doing with it, so you can get a nice even pull. Yeah,
that probably works. Yeah, for you sculpting it on the surface, that's got to be even more difficult. What torch do you use when you're at Disney?
It depends on location, but we have because I don't own a GTT, so there's the Mirage and there's the Phantom. Okay. Whichever one is the bigger of the two is what we have there.
Mirage.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's what we're using. Dude, it's been a complete learning curve learning this torch. Like, I've been blowing glass from day one type thing. Like, and I've been working on a new character. He's my biggest character in Clear, and I've never had to deal with DeWitt ever. And this is the first time that I've had to deal with it because I'm like overheating the glass. You know, because the GTT's like you go from solid to soup, and I've been running a Carlisle for almost 20 years, which is that nice gradual heat. It's so much more controllable. And then I jump on this GTT, and it's like holy fuck. And I was learning this new character and learning a torch at the same time, which wasn't working. So I have a Bethlehem Shark there, so I just pulled that out and just started using that. It's a softer, slower torch, but it made me slow down and understand what I was doing. So the DVIT went away. So now I'm back on the GTT. I understand the torch better. Like the back of my hand, we have a foot pedal for it, the whole 9 yards, which I don't have a foot pedal at home, dude. I can't tell you how many times I step down for my foot pedal and it's not there.
Right? You look for it. That's what made me have to build mine. 'Cause I went
So
from
annoying.
Mirage to the GTT, and I was like, I really like being able to adjust the flame because I sped up my working process that way to be able to get something hot and then go and pinpoint it. So a few things for you to try to be nicer to the surface of your work. If you're working on things like solid white that can't be reduced, try turning down your oxy pressure.
Okay.
I've seen people run as low as like 20 on a Mirage. Now, if you want to work solid black and not reduce it, you got to turn that oxy pressure up, obviously.
Right.
You'd be surprised at how soft you can get a GTT by turning down the oxy pressure. I like to turn down the propane pressure in conjunction with that and have it just enough propane going through to get the biggest flame I want, but just that much. So it takes a little bit more turning on the actual knobs on the torch to get to the flame settings, but you'll find it'll be less touchy.
Okay.
And another fun thing to do is to run the inner fire and the outer fire on separate regs and feed the inner fire really what a Lynx would get, and then feed the outer fire, that 40 or whatever, a little higher oxy, so that your inner fire is running off a lower pressure, so it's going to be less likely to push so hard and less likely to scuzz the surface of things.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so that was things I learned. I had a Mirage for about 10 years, so definitely love GTTs as well, and I learned on a Carlisle, so I love all torches. They're awesome. I love Beths as well.
Yeah, the Bethlehems they're nice, and like when we first got I think it was a 50 mil Herbie. Well, they were Czech Republic made ones that were like a knockoff of the torch.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, and this is like 12, 13 years ago, maybe longer than that, and the guy I was working with, we ran a studio together, and he knew Abe pretty good out in Cali. So we got him in, and the instructions were all in Czech, and we obviously couldn't read them. So Miles is like, well, you've been doing this. I'm not a glass blower, so hook him up. So I hook up the torch, and I'll never forget it, dude. I turn the center flame on. I go to give it a little bit of pressure, and the largest fucking fireball cannon thing shot out of the head of that torch and made the loudest exploding noise. I swear to God, I thought I died. We all ran out of that fucking studio as fast as we could because I thought I was going to blow the place up. And what I realized I'd done was I had hooked up the propane to the oxygen lever to increase the flame size. So it just got this huge jolt of propane to hit that little center flame, And just, I'm surprised I didn't blow the fucking torch up. Like it scared the shit out of me. So we immediately disconnected it and said, hey, Abe, you want to buy some torches? And we ended up just selling them to him because I didn't want to, kill my fellow shopmates and blow the studio up. Because again, the GLDGA was out there, or whatever the fuck you want to call the thing at the time, but there still wasn't a lot of information on the Herbies really going on yet. You're saying about inventing a foot pedal in a sense for it. So.
Yes, the Fart Glass Pipe Makers Forum.
Yeah, exactly. We should recreate that and just call it that, the Fart Glass Forum.
Yeah, the Fart Glass Facebook group. I don't know.
Yeah, something. Bring all the OGs on there. Have some real glass discussions instead of this shit talk with the newbies out there. Even though I love all the newbies, but it's still fun to talk to the OGs out there.
Yeah, they all have different things to bring, and we can all learn from each other. It's very. I love working with some of the newer glass artists out there. They don't have preconceived limits like I had with evolving with bad colors and torches that were weird, and without hand torches and stuff. You would set up these artificial limits that don't really need to be there, and it's fun to see some of the newer workers. They're like a young snowboarder that sees somebody do a double backflip in the pipe and goes, it's possible. Sure, I can just do it. And so as these newer glass blowers see all this awesome stuff out there, they know it's possible. And so all it takes is hard work and some knowledge and the right equipment. They can get there.
Yeah, exactly. It's just completely off topic, but it's not at the same time. It's like the guy that ran the first 4-minute mile, you know? And doctors were
Yeah.
like, if a human being runs a minute or 4-minute mile, their heart will explode. It's impossible. And then this guy does it. And then, like, they said, like, within, like, 3 months or some shit like that, like, 6 other people broke the record. So it's funny how that works. And again, I agree. It's like, I love having the young pup in the studio, keeping my old ass in check, you know, fire me up and show me some new shit. Like my brother, dude, like he grew up in this game with us with all this new color. Then as the color came out, he'd buy it and learn about it and hoard it at the same time. God bless him. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure, you know, that fucker has, like, when the serum talk was going on, I'm like, I know some motherfucker out there that has 5 pounds of serum that he's not going to tell anybody about. And then I told Jared about.
He's given me a few color kickdowns because I only use the India green in my pieces and it's kind of unavailable. So he's like, all right, here's 2 sticks that'll last you like 6 months.
He got that from me, the India green stuff. Yeah, I had a shit ton of it at one point in time. We traded a little trade on it, but yeah, it's fun, man. So that being said, it's cool to see the generations that have grown up with all this new stuff and they've learned how to use it properly, and they can teach us how to use it, because I make a reducing mess with half this new shit that's out there.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of little nuances to the different stuff, and I've been fortunate enough to, you know, kind of evolve with it and learn a lot of it, because learning new colors was kind of my dig, but it's amazing to see where it's gone now. And then just the you know, the CFL trend, the color trend has been interesting. The color hype game that GA has been pushing and developing, it's been, you know, they're doing it in a team approach like type thing too, where, you know, it was really interesting to see how they brought out these hype colors and then only gave them to certain artists, and made it hard to get, and it made those pieces very valuable at the time. But it's amazing to see how the hype colors just kind of come and go.
Yeah, I love Lemon Drop still.
Yeah, you can't get that one.
No, I know. Fuck, you can
I don't
make
like
it.
how bubbly it was, but it was really an awesome color. I love the very early version that was transparent.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
Was my favorite.
Yeah, that was the shit right there. Yeah, I have a couple small little nibs of that shit laying around still. I've been holding on to. So, well, yeah, man. Again, another tangent there, but last question, and then I'll let you go here, because I know you got lots, kind of your time for the day. Is what are your top 5 favorite tools in your studio besides your glasses, your torch, and your kiln?
All right. Well, you know, I have a pair of those cigar clippers that are like diamond shears that I've hand sharpened. I have a real set of Jim Moore diamond shears, but they're so big, I don't use them. So I use my diamond shears, number one. If I don't have them, there's certain things I literally cannot do. So like, say for doing a hot cut on Marini, or even like sometimes chopping down hollow tubing, I'll use them to make a little nice score indentation around, and then I give it a little wiggle and pop it off that way. And that's just something I've personally kind of developed, and it works for me quickly, and I use them a lot. So the cigar, the cheapo diamond shears are one of my number one. You know, definitely a graphite rod, you know, whether it's, and a graphite octagonal reamer. Those are 2 real big ones, so I can make joints, flare things open the way I like to. Another tool I really like and I can't live without is those little tweezers that when you squeeze them, they open up. I really like those for everything, and I've like filed my own personal ones down and wax them occasionally or whatnot, but I find I use that a lot. And then my pedal. So I don't know if that's 5. Am I at 4?
Yep, you're at 4.
I'm at 4. All right, one more. Let's see. You know, my blast shield torch marker, does that count?
Yep.
I use the heck out of that thing. I really like the swing up side. I have like the Merc one, which is kind of an old school one, but I love it. Has like a little swing up graphite V type thing that's been ground in there that I really like for breaking stuff apart. And yeah, just marvering in general.
I have a graphite V tool that I love, except for the fact that I need to find a way to sharpen it so it's not so rounded at the V.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
I find that I really just need that light indention there, and then I can almost push the glass together and give it a little wiggle or whatever. But yeah, sharpening them occasionally. Mine is like a really wide one that's less of a V and more of an arc.
Okay.
And I'm not saying it's any better. It's just is what's on there.
Yeah. I think mine's turned into an arc. So basically.
Yeah, right. For sure.
Yeah, man. Elm Arbor and that tool, that's definitely good stuff. And those, it's a slick concept set up for the blast shields to have all the different attachments you can put on there that are multi-functional.
Yeah, and I must say I use the blast shield on my torch as well. I don't use it all the time, but I love it in the summer when you want to get that heat off your face. And I mean, obviously, it's safer for us to block a lot of that radiant heat, energy, and UV. Another thing I do is I make like a cannabis coconut oil extract that I put on my face every day before I blow glass to try and battle skin cancer and things like
Interesting.
that.
Yeah. I'm glad you bring that up. I wear sunscreen. I have like a quote-unquote natural low SPF for babies, basically, sunscreen that I use. But like I use a blast shield, dude, but I swear to God, it just covers enough where my fucking forehead still gets burnt. So it's so annoying.
See, I wear like a hat or something usually to cover up my forehead somewhat. But yeah, that could definitely happen.
Yeah, it's annoying.
My blast shield is up quite high too. It's like on the little stick extender.
Okay.
And it may be a little higher than I want it, but I find it like helps me correct my posture because I can't lean my head forward or I'll hit my glasses into the blast shield.
Yeah.
And I want it to protect my face, so it almost helps me with posture in that respect.
I hate when I realize I'm looking around this stupid thing and I'm getting just blasted by the heat instead of looking through it because it's clear.
Oh, I know. I do that too. Yeah. I totally do that.
It's so stupid. It's like I got a clear window in front of me. I can just look straight ahead. What the fuck are you doing? But, you know, our head wants to turn with our hands. You know, it's just mechanical stuff.
Something.
God, it drives me nuts. Stupid habits of 20-year-old glass blowers stuff.
Right.
So,
good stuff.
Yeah, dude. Well, I could sit here and talk to you for. I mean, Jared even he warned me. Like, he's like, you guys will probably talk for 5 hours. I guarantee it. So, we're already almost 2.5 hours in. So, again, I know you got a full day ahead of you, probably. Maybe you don't. I don't know, but I do.
It's a snow day here in Colorado, but I know you do too.
Snow day? Like you guys got snow already?
We got snow last night. Yeah, your brother was already posting lives in the shop. He drove there when it was still dark out. But yeah, we got about 5-6 inches of snow last night.
Rad.
Killed the garden, and it's gonna get down to like 18 degrees tonight, so that'll really kill the garden.
Jesus, we had a quote unquote cold front come through on Friday, I think it was. Woke up yesterday morning. It was beautiful outside. It was still about 85 by midday. Got up today. Same thing. It's gorgeous out. I opened my entire house up. Did my first interview. And then that was over, and I was sweating my nuts off. Fucking humidity's already back. It's like 90 degrees outside. So definitely enjoy that cool weather, man, and that low humidity.
Okay.
And before I let you go here, if you want to tell us where we can find you out there in cyberspace, and also find your DOS pedal, like DOS boot, and
yes. All right. So
awesome.
Glass-wise, it's at Surf Rat Glass. So yeah. Last name's Ratcliffe, and I've been surfing around in the glass world for a while. So Surf Rat Glass, and dospedal.com for the pedal, and on Facebook at Bryan Ratcliffe. So
rad.
all those things.
And then if you want to give us some parting piece of advice, and whether it's to the OGs or just to glass artists in general, or just human beings in general, really.
Yeah, I'd say. Treat every customer like they're your boss, because they are. And then, what would my other one be? Just try and treat people the way you want to be treated, and it'll be reciprocal, and it'll work out for you in the future.
Hell yeah. Exactly. Well, cool, man. Again, thanks again for coming on, and awesome. I definitely appreciate this and getting you out there, and it's fun talking to the cats that have been doing this for as long as I have, and have had all the very similar experiences. So it's always good to hear.
Great. Well, thank you really much. I appreciate it, and I'd be stoked to do a health coach one as well.
Yeah, for sure. And just one more thing too. When this will come out a week from tomorrow, so not this Monday, but the following Monday, this will be aired. And I'll send you like a link to the show. I'll send you. I make a little graphic so you can throw it up on your Instagram or whatever. And the website, you'll have your own page too on my website that'll be dedicated just to your story and stuff. And then if you haven't yet sent me a bio and like 5 pictures of your work, and then like an action shot would be cool too. So I can throw that up on the website for you.
I'll get that done.
And then all your any kind of links you want me to have, like I'll already have written down what you just talked about too, plus off your Instagram. But anything else you want to bring up, you know, in the bio wise, go ahead and throw it in there, and I'll include it on your page for you.
All right, that sounds great.
Hell yeah. All right, man. Well, I hope you all enjoyed this episode with Mr. Bryan Ratcliffe, and you can again find him on Instagram at SurfRatGlass. I'll have all the links for his episode here in the show notes and all the information you guys need. And until next time, we'll see you guys on the Wise Guy Radio Show. Have a great night. Peace.